Looks like I'm good. Let's see. Get the chat. Stop it. Okay. Yep. Think we're good. Yes, we're good. I could probably go down a little bit now. I'll do this. Yeah, I'll do that. I'll do that. Yeah, that looks okay, I think. Which one's this one? Come on. There's more than one, but this is the OG. Well, not OG, but the meta one. Bro, I have it on the cover. From Robindel. I hopefully I'm pronouncing that right. Is Robindel or Robindel? With 2 O's. Hell yeah, I like this one. I know. I watched this vid when it first came out. Like by myself. So I mean we could rewatch this again. Like I watched it and I feel like it explained it pretty well, you know, like yeah, I watched it. I mean, not like I was there before it blew up. It was just like it was good. And then it keeps going up. Like it's a good video. Yes. Sounds perfect. Oh no. I meant by like it looks like it hasn't like hopefully it's not gonna lag or disconnect. That's what I mean. Just had to check that it was fine at least now. So somebody translated this in Chinese. So here. So this is his original on YouTube here. But I'm gonna just show the Bilibili one just because well actually I also don't know why it's like well actually I should have this a little larger, I guess. Like that doesn't look right. Yeah, that doesn't look right. Let's do this. So yeah, shit. Well, I mean, he has like slips. That's why I'm like, I don't know. Maybe like that then. Yeah, that looks like a correct. Yeah, that looks like correct ratio instead of the long ass one. So yeah, I mean, it's basically the same. It just has Chinese CC because one of the like there's like 3 people that translate like YouTuber like Yu-Gi-Oh content on YouTube or like from Twitch WOD. So this is like one of them. He translated the entire video. So I'm gonna just play that one because there's Chinese subtitles for third child. Okay. Well, I mean, I could yab when we reacting when we get to the stuff. Like, there's some stuff I still remember. So let me do this. I think that's fine. Okay, let's just go. Oh, hopefully this is not too loud. Yo.
In late September of 2001, Yu-Gi-Oh! Duel Monsters began airing in the United States and almost immediately became a cultural phenomenon. The main focus of the show was the titular card game, and its massive success in America guaranteed that a physical version of Duel Monsters would hit store shelves.
Yeah, so I knew about the, I guess with the blue eyes, like the first, like the LOB, like I knew some like boomer context because of this video. They just announced like 20 minutes ago. It's just that they always have like anniversary stuff. We're doing this? What's wrong with doing this?
Near future. The game had already taken off in Japan and proven its potential
Bandai
market
be
value,
like,
and so after making a deal with Konami to acquire the Yu-Gi-Oh! License, Upper Deck Entertainment sought to capitalize on the
Upper
show's
Deck?
popularity and bring the game to a Western audience. And while I'm sure both Upper Deck and Konami were expecting the game to be successful, since its target audience was probably the anime's fan base of kids and teenagers, I don't think they, or anyone really, could have anticipated that Yu-Gi-Oh! Would go on to become one of the most complex popular card games
What
of
do I
all
see as
time,
that?
with a history and lore 18 years in the making, and just as deep as the one present in the anime and manga it was based on. While the only experience many people have with Yu-Gi-Oh! Comes from...
You guys know that, like, there was an interview, Takahashi, and he was like, "I don't understand Yu-Gi-Oh! After 5 days," like, or something like that. He was like, "I don't know the card game rules." We will learn that Yu-Gi-Oh! Always sucks. Well, they didn't emerge like what's on my head emerging balance. They just didn't. Well, it's like people are gonna not abuse the system, but they're gonna find out some meta shit, right? So
playing
why?
the game casually when they were younger. Behind the scenes,
Oh yeah, I
there's
remember these
experience
ads.
many people have with Yu-Gi-Oh!
Like,
comes
I
from
remember
playing
this,
the game casually
actually.
when they were
I do
younger.
remember
Behind
this.
the scenes, there has always been a fiercely competitive, dynamic, and perpetually evolving metagame.
速通没有速通，this is part one. This is part one. So he hasn't. This is what 3 years ago. This video is like a couple years already. He's still I'm assuming he's working on part two since this is part one.
Competitive landscape and
this is R Ling R. This is 2002 to 2005. That's like what, less than 10 formats? Actually, well, I mean, we'll be able to know. I don't know, but yeah. I don't think Takahashi was expecting to go as far as it did. Okay, so this is like another thing that pissed me off when people are talking about like, oh, like card game is the main story when it was fucking not. So what happened was when he was doing the manga, he was doing all like Dicemon, like Dungeon Dice, like he was doing other like D&D, he was doing other games, but because when he drew the card game or like the BS No Ru, like I don't know, before Battle City. What was it? Like you know what I mean, right? Like and then what happened was on Jump, they were like, "Oh, like a lot of people like it." And because they do reviews, like you can write in like you can write in feedback and be like, "Oh, I like this or not, whatever stuff." So they were like, "Oh, I want to see more, I don't know, Break Eyes Dragon or whatever shit." So then it became the card game. And this was even before Bandai printed before Konami did the card games. It was Bandai because the season 0 actually was Toei. Like it was like, okay, so that's what I mean. Like it was not, first of all, it was never fucking about card games in the first place. Second of all, when they were printing cards, yeah, they didn't know that like the meta scene would like people would take it seriously and abuse system. So then they had to have balance, you know. So this is what 2000.
Many eras were defined by the strategies that
I see some war crimes
that would take the game by storm, and most importantly,
they're not gonna print
dedicated creative
Why would
players
they
both
do
willing
that?
and able to push the game to its
Can you
absolute
can
limit.
you tell me why it would be a good reason for them to reprint that card? Oh, I see Yada. Wait a sec. 2006. No, wait. Jar. Yeah, 2003.
Players both willing and able to push the game to its absolute limit.
Why not? They're restricted for reprinting it ever? You do understand why, I mean, the speculation of why it's not printed, right? So why would they fucking print it? Like, why? Like, there's no reason to do it. Play Exodia Turbo. Yes, no, I know. Well, I mean, I'm just saying, like, definitely they did not know that it would be like, I don't know, like, the meta scene would be whatever stuff. That's pretty obvious now. Why would they reprint fucking Dark Magician all the time? Oh, you're talking about Air Ninos. Oh my god, I thought you were talking about that hero card. They do, they don't? They're gonna have new support or whatever stuff because they're doing GX now. Like they're doing some GX stuff. They announced it. They announced it yesterday that something's gonna happen, and they announced what is gonna happen. I'm not crazy about GX. So I think it's like another like event thing, and they're gonna do some new stuff. So 1000% they're gonna have some support stuff, and 1000% from GX they're gonna have hero stuff. So I don't know if they're gonna reprint. They might. I don't know. Like Yada, Chaos Dragoon after Yada though. Yeah, part 1. This is part 1, guys. Friday. Oh yeah, yeah, it will be.
The Yu-Gi-Oh! Trading card game made its debut outside of Japan in March of 2002 with the release of Legend of Blue Eyes White Dragon. And just like the anime had about 6
82
months
common
before
cards.
this, the game almost immediately exploded in popularity.
Pretty much everyone started playing it. Like, it wasn't just a nerd thing, it wasn't just like a weird person thing. The people that were playing sports are doing it. I mean, boys and girls were all playing it. Pretty much the entire, like, classroom was playing it.
Not in
Point,
my
though,
experience,
the game's
but
appeal,
okay.
while widespread, it was still mostly casual, so there was no metagame to speak of.
So
There was
I know like the playground thing, but it was definitely well, in my experience, I've seen dudes play it. I never seen girls play it, so.
like no rule.
Well, that's also because stupid boys would be like, you know, I don't need to explain.
book
I'm not gonna go into detail. You know why.
So you really have to talk to the store owner to really get some info about the
Just
game.
BS.
It really was like the recess meta. None of us had sleeves. None of us really had deck boxes.
No
You had
Dragon
a rubber
Shield?
band around
Oh
your
yeah,
neck,
yeah,
and
yeah.
you had that plastic
That's
bag.
right.
Fortunately, this initial Wild West period
pissed off
was
the
pretty
coach?
brief.
No
Towards
PE?
the end of the month, the Yu-Gi-Oh!
Wait,
trading
what?
Fortunately, this initial Wild West period was
Wild
pretty
West
brief.
period?
Towards the end of the month, the Yu-Gi-Oh! Trading card game saw another major release, and the roots of the competitive game began to take shape.
Pretty sure they were like legend, 1,006, what, 1,700.
Although the Legend of Blue Eyes booster set was responsible for
Mystic,
introducing
though?
many people to the game, the release of the
Boys
Kaiba
feel like
Yugi
girls,
starter
yeah.
decks was what
Basically
really
that.
propelled it into the mainstream.
Yugi Kaiba format, that's like when, you know, a lot of people first got into the game, they got like their, you know, their starter decks.
The most important thing about these starter decks is that they gave all potential players access
Official-
to the game's official
I'm
rulebook.
assuming the
This, of
official
course, allowed
rulebook
a
is
competitive
also
scene to
incorrect.
even exist in the first place. And while the overwhelming majority of Yu-Gi-Oh's players were casual ones, local tournaments were already being held at various game shops, and many players showed a clear interest in not only building the most powerful deck, but playing that deck the most optimally.
I'm told that this is a cross of chess and Pokemon.
Cross
How
of
exactly
chess
does
and
one play
Pokemon?
Yu-Gi-Oh!
One could, at this point, describe Yu-Gi-Oh's rules as simple. Simple enough, anyway, that many
It's
people
not
were
simple,
able to pick
no.
up the basics just by watching the anime.
See, each card has an attack
Okay,
number
okay,
and a
sure.
defense number. First player to eliminate their opponent's life points wins the duel.
Like many other trading card games, Yu-Gi-Oh! Is built around the idea of stripping another player of a vital resource, in this case, life points. The most straightforward and typically the most effective way to decrease a player's
Winning a
life
duel,
points
okay.
has always been to deal damage by attacking with monster cards. Unless stated otherwise, all monsters have the inherent ability to declare an attack either on an opposing player or on another monster, and a monster's attack
Real
point
talk,
score is
as a kid, we
indicative of
played
how much
with
damage
4K
it deals when
LP.
attacking and how powerful it is relative to
It
other
wasn't it
monsters.
4K
Given
LP?
the landscape of the early
Like,
game, it
when-
may have
like in
actually been
LV?
true at this point that this attack point score was the most important thing about a monster.
Oh yes, it's a legend. Is it 1,700? I forgot. Oh yeah, Summon Skull don't need a tribute, or only need one Monday tribute or whatever shit. It was always AK. Okay.
Following
I don't
the
play
release of
paper,
both
I'm just
starter
asking.
decks, the
I
card
don't know.
pool was still fairly limited. While Legend
Was
of
it in
Blue
the
Eyes brought a
rulebook?
whopping 126 cards into the game,
126?
many of them were almost completely useless.
Because LOD,
Useless.
the cards were just awful. Monsters didn't even have effects. The only true effect monster was Exodia's head.
Yeah,
87
Exodia
of
head.
these 126 cards were monster cards, and of those, 82
To be
were
honest,
either
that's kind of the same as currently. I mean, that's why I don't play paper. Well, I mean, even if I play paper, I just buy single. Because I'm just like, okay, I open the box, right? And then it's like, it's not guaranteed that I'll get all my cards. But I'm paying more. And then the rest of the penny cards or whatever the cards that nobody wants. What's that thing called? Bro, I forgot the name. But there's a term for that. And it's like, okay, why am I doing this then? It's just like you want to open some packs. That's why you do it. It's showing the video.
normal
Okay,
monsters or fusion monsters with no effect.
开笑。
Starter decks Yugi and Kaiba collectively added 59 more cards into the card pool, and 35 of them were also normal monsters. This meant that most of the available monsters were clearly and undeniably worse than the truly exceptional few worth playing.
La Jin was like a beast.
Yeah, legend. Yeah,
1800
legend.
beatdown.
Yeah, that was
Let's
a
go.
1,800.
Lajin, the
1,800.
mystical genie of the lamp, was a level 4 monster with 1800.
Bruh, why is this card like this card got some beat up here? The PSA 1 Blue Eyes Summon Turbo format. I think they don't summon Blue Eyes, no, since Blue Eye is not like really effective. Like it's too slow. I mean, that's what you imagine. Well, that's what people that were playing Playground without tribute was doing, no. Actual meta, they don't actually do that, no. Legend? Yeah, Legend OP.
making it the most powerful monster a player could summon without tributing other monsters. Since the game prohibited players from playing any more than 3 copies of the same card in their deck, other weaker monsters like Neo the Magic Swordsman and Battle Ox, level 4 monsters with 1700 attack, were played alongside Legend as they provided more consistent access to powerful monsters that could be normal summoned immediately. Giant Soldier of Stone and even occasionally monsters like Aquamador and Mystical Elf saw play due to their high defense values.
Yes, high
2000
defense.
was, after all, the highest base.
They don't have the Labyrinth Wall, huh? That's 2K. That's also 2K defense, though. When people revisit the format, Lord of Deep plus Flute was like the strongest combo. I see. Well, no, okay, that's not the first format though, no? 神灯1800乱杀
that printed on a level 4 or lower monster by far, but cards like these could typically only be used defensively, or as set up for the future summon of a monster like Summon Skull.
Future summon, okay. It was still LV, okay.
Summon Skull was very strong, 1 tribute monster that was the same attack as a Dark Magician.
While it certainly would have been cool if the format had been split between
Big
people
eyes,
playing
poo-poo.
Dark Magician and people playing Blue Eyes, Dark Magician was made obsolete by the level
No!
6 Summon Skull. Summon Skull had, without a doubt, more attack points
Lab
than
one
any
on
other
his
1
box, I
tribute
see.
monster in the game, and was even more powerful than many 2 tribute monsters like Gaia the Fierce Knight and Red Eyes Black Dragon. Blue Eyes, on the other hand, was, with no caveat, no asterisk, the most powerful monster in the game, but this came at the cost of it being much more difficult to summon than Summon Skull. Summon Skull was the more likely of the two to actually make its way onto the field, but if a person could manage to summon Blue Eyes, there wasn't a single monster that could kill it in battle aside from another copy of Blue Eyes. While these powerful normal monsters were the bread and butter of most early decks, they weren't the only monsters that saw
Your favorite
competitive
Blue Eyes art? This is the OG one. Well, if you don't count like the one that he drew, the one like behind the moon, this is like the OG one.
as few of them as
That's
there-
what I mean. When in Master Duel, when they have the alt one, the one on the side pro, I'm like, that's fake Blue Eyes. This is the actual Blue Eyes. This is what Blue Eye is. This card here.
were effect monsters did exist at this point, but many of them had effects that just weren't powerful enough to make
What's the effect here? The effect monster cards. Okay, it doesn't say. It doesn't say. Okay, this is just
up for their
in
lackluster
general what
stats.
this is.
Of the 13 available effect monsters, only 4 were truly useful, and even
Honey,
though it was still
honey,
powerful, the
Manny
weakest of these 4 was
Butter,
probably
set and
Hane.
pass.
Hane, like many other early effect monsters, has a flip effect, meaning that its effect only activates whenever it's flipped face up, either by the person who initially summoned it face down, or as a result of being attacked while face down. Hane's effect allows a player to put any monster on the field back in the hand of its owner, which again was fairly powerful, but it was in most cases a strictly worse version of either Wall of Illusion.
Okay,
or
it's a
Manny
proxy
Bugger.
then. Yeah, Manny Booger.
Wall of Illusion was arguably the best of the 4, as it had both a powerful effect and
Bro, I
a
don't even
respectable stat.
remember this card.
Its 1850
In
defense
anime?
stat made it powerful enough to survive
Return
being
that
attacked
mon
by
to the
anything
hand.
that could be summoned without tributing, and on top of that, it would always at least temporarily remove anything that tried to kill it from the field. It effectively served the same purpose as Hane, but unlike Hane, it would usually remain on the
You know, I can't find that photo when I was like, it was like my like 5-year-old birthday picture, and I had like a Yugi balloon. Like I had it, but then I put it somewhere and I can't find it anymore. So it's lost. I can't prove it to you, but I have that. I used to have it. I don't know where that shit went.
field after being attacked due to its high defense stat, and it was also able to remove multiple monsters from the field.
I was a
since
Yugi
its
cutie?
effect
No.
was not a flip effect, and instead went off whenever it was attacked, even if the attack
I
destroyed
said
it,
it.
and
I was
even
like
if it had
bugging.
already
I was
used the effect
bugging.
before. This made
I was bugging dudes. I was bugging like boy, and I was like, "Oh my god, you gotta fucking watch this shit. You gotta watch this on TV." And then after like 2 times, they just like they're not interested. I'm like, "Well, okay, well I'm gonna just watch it myself."
removing it from the field through battle incredibly annoying, as the only monsters powerful enough to do it had to be tribute summoned, and even if they were able to destroy the Wall of Illusion, they would be returned to the hand afterwards, and their owner would need to go through the process of tribute summoning them all over again. Maneater Bug and Trapmaster, the last of these 4, were, like Hane, flip monsters with removal-based effects. They actually seem to be part of a 3-card series, along with Armed Ninja, as each of their effects targeted and destroyed one of the game's 3 core kinds of cards: monsters, magic cards, and trap cards. Nobody played armed ninja because most powerful magic cards weren't worth setting face down, and with the sole exception of Swords of Revealing Light, didn't remain on the field after being activated. The ability to destroy monsters and trap cards, on the other hand, was extremely powerful.
Every little kid is cute.
Attack and defense scores of both Maneater Bug
Well,
and
most
Trap
kids are cute,
Maneater
and then
Bug
when you
Legend and
grow a
Revolution
little
were the
bit
game's
more,
first two
now you'd be
staples,
like, okay, you
so
were
they
actually
found
just
their way
fucked.
into mini decks, both competitive and casual alike. Trapmaster wasn't quite as omnipresent as any of these cards, but it was still popular among competitive players due to the power of trap cards.
Trap cards. Poo card. Travel. Oh, Wabaku.
Trap cards offered the unique benefit of being usable during either player's turn, and were usually designed to take advantage of this. There were only 9 of them released between the first booster set and both starter decks, but a surprising number of them were actually pretty good. Without a doubt, the best of them were Trap
Yeah,
Hole
when
and
Trap
Wabaku,
Hole we're
cards
using.
that were so good that pretty much anyone who played the game ran
Slow
both
ass
it
meta
through.
here.
Trap Hole was one of the most reliable
You're like
forms
20
of monster
turns to
removal
kill.
in the game, and was particularly useful against monsters that needed to be tribute summoned. Wabaku, meanwhile, was one of the only cards in the game that offered players any sort of protection from their opponent, and it was pretty good protection at that. It essentially skipped the other player's battle phase after being activated, and since it could be activated at almost any point during either player's
Trap
turn,
hole every
stopping
day.
it was really difficult.
Okay.
Another trap card that was extremely popular, but not quite as good as either of these two, was Reinforcements. The focus placed on attack points and the battle phase during this period allowed this card to shine. As good as the game's few viable trap cards were, however, they couldn't compete with the power of what was easily the best kind of card in the game, magic cards.
Yeah, magic always is better. Magic was always just better because you have to wait for like the set of trap.
Like trap cards, magic cards had effects that were, at the time, typically much more powerful.
Dude,
than
I
those
remember
given
running
monsters.
3
Unlike
copies.
trap cards
Okay,
and even
Yugi
flip
Boomer.
monsters, however, magic cards can be activated immediately with no setup at all required from
Yeah,
the
you.
player. This
I
made them
remember. I
inherently more
remember when
powerful
I
than
was
most
playing with
monsters and
Bandai
traps
cards.
for the simple fact that they were much
That's
faster.
what
Two
you're
of the
gonna
most
say next,
popular
no?
early magic cards were Fissure and Swords of
Magic.
Revealing.
Yeah, magic.
These two
Not
were
spell
pretty
cards,
similar
guys.
in function to Trap Hole and Wabaku, respectively. One could get rid of a monster, and the other was a
Magic
powerful
card.
spell. Both
Remember
saw
when it
about
was
as much
magic
success
cards?
as the staple trap cards of the era, but they were far from the best magic cards in the game. They were completely eclipsed by another group of cards, often referred to as the Power 5.
Power 5? Pot agreed! Let's fucking go! I was so freaked out when I came back to the game and it was all spells. What the fuck? Draw the card. This is like, you could cut this and this could be like TikTok edit. Like 15-second TikTok edit here.
The most powerful cards in the game.
I mean, these cards are iconic, right?
Those are like classic.
Any deck that included them was better for it, and so they were
Bro,
played
you
by
can
pretty
you
much
cannot
anyone
see
who
these
had
like now
access to them.
still.
They were so powerful and so widely used, in fact, that they led to the creation of the game's first forbidden and limited list, where
I
many
thought
of them
it was
have
because of
remained
Yada.
for the entire life of the game. The
You
first
cannot
edition of this
use,
list went into
okay.
effect at the beginning of May, but it didn't actually ban any cards. 10 cards were limited and 2 were semi-limited. The first 5 cards to be placed in the limited section were the 5 pieces of Exodia. While these cards did act as an alternate win condition, they have almost never been at the
I
center of
summon
any of the
Pottery
game's
and
most
draw 3
powerful decks.
cards.
It was probably for the best that they were placed here, but it's hard to say
Does
that
that mean
this had a substantial
Spellcaster was
effect
called
on the metagame.
Magic
What
Caster
ended
back
up being
then?
far more impactful was
I
the
actually
decision
don't know
to limit
the
the previously mentioned Power
TCG.
5 Magic cards.
I can completely
I don't think
understand
so, no?
why these cards were all limited in the context of 2002 Yu-Gi-Oh! Just because these are game/format warping cards for the time. When you have a card that literally just says destroy all monsters on your
Raigeki, let's
opponent's
fucking
field,
go.
it's crazy, right? And it's so funny that a card that literally just says draw 2 cards was limited, but like now in modern Yu-Gi-Oh! Sense is banned.
Imagine
that just goes to
Pottery
show
at
how
3 today.
powerful drawing cards is in this game.
We've had that. We had that in the side event where it's unlimited. Like everything you could run 3 Potteries.
Cards placed in the semi-limited section were also magic cards. While card destruction was not omnipresent in the early metagame, it may have been problematic if everyone could play 3 copies of it in their deck. This card in multiple quantities hypothetically makes it very easy to force another player to lose by decking out, and that aside, it was also occasionally played as a powerful draw card since Pot of Greed was now limited.
Yeah, Raigeki
Swords
to
was
go.
a pretty big deal because, unlike Wabaku, it allowed players to stall for 3 turns instead of just 1.
Like, stalling 3 turns was like, oh, I can draw into my Raigeki.
This ban list was the last
I can draw into my pot of
which meant that the
greed.
game was able to stabilize over the course of the next month. With Dark Hole and Raigeki Limited, Fissure had become the most consistent way to
Fissure,
get
yeah.
monsters off of the field with a card effect. It was one of the most reliable ways to get rid of a wall of illusion without attacking
Target
it,
for
and it
every
also
event,
made
yeah,
committing to a
unless they
tribute summon
errata
too
it.
early very risky,
Like,
which
draw
led many
two
players to wait to
cards.
summon their deck's boss monster until they had at least
It
two
has to be like
monsters
if you
already
don't
on the
have any
field.
cards,
This is one of a handful of reasons
you
that
can
Summon
draw
Skull
two cards and it
Beatdown
has to be like
ultimately
once a
became the
turn.
best deck of the
That's
four.
why the other
Setting up a
plots
field
is
of
this,
three
and they're like
monsters
limited
before
or
summoning
like
the Blue Eyes was
semi-limited.
pretty tough, and in
Like
many
you need
cases,
cost
even
of
if a
like
player properly
banishing
plays
cards
around
from deck
Fissure,
or
their
like
Blue
I
Eyes
don't
would
know,
just get
banish
destroyed
6
by
or
Trap Hole, or
3
perhaps
cards
even
from
Raigeki
extra
or
deck,
Dark
right?
Hole.
So
For this reason, those truly dedicated to making Blue Eyes work often played Lord of D and the Flute of Summoning Dragon, cards that could help bypass the need to tribute monsters entirely. A handful of other cards were experimented with and saw scattered success throughout this period, but none would stick around for long. Yu-Gi-Oh! Was on the verge of its first major
MST
shakeup, brought
high,
about by
bruh.
the June release of its next core booster set.
Metal Raiders, Soul and Judgment.
Metal Raiders added a staggering 144 cards to the game, and thus nearly doubled the available card pool. Of course, not all 144 were actually good, but given the sheer volume of new cards, the game was bound to see a noticeable leap in power. While
Harpy
beatdown
Lady.
decks, and Summon Skull beatdown decks in particular, continued to dominate the meta, the cards added in Metal Raiders
Imagine
almost
P plus
completely
one.
changed how these decks
Yeah.
and the game in general were played.
Yeah, and that's what I mean. Like some of the other stuff got limited or semi-limited with cost. So in order for Prodigy to be even like limited, it would have to
Surprisingly,
be
this
like
set's magic cards were
cost
actually
and plus
largely
ones per turn.
overshadowed by many of its new traps, which brought with them the idea of a brand
Mirror
new form of
Force.
interaction, negation.
You activated my trap card.
I
actually
negate your
started to
negate.
matter.
Unlike, for example, Trap Hole and Wabaku, these were not cards meant to respond to one action or effect with another. The purpose of these new cards was to prevent certain things from happening entirely.
Not 7
There
tools
were
and
5
Bandy,
new cards
bruh.
with a negation clause in this set, and 4 of them in particular were designed to negate individual cards. All of them were counter trap cards, meaning that they couldn't be responded to once they were activated, except with other counter trap cards, and they all allowed the player to trade some of their resources.
I
in
Soul
order
and
to
Judgment, you're
completely
Soul and
negate the
Judgment.
activation or summon of another card. What's interesting is they all asked the player for something different in exchange. They all had a different cost. And because of this, Solemn Judgment and Horn of Heaven saw very limited play.
A lot of people did not like Solemn Judgment.
I don't
during
know,
its
man.
original release.
Really?
It's the Omni Negate, but you have to pay half your life points.
They don't care about half the life
fascinating that
points?
This didn't just become like a staple immediately out of the gate. Like I think looking back, some people are probably just like, I don't know why we just weren't all running 3 of this just because of how powerful the card it is.
They valued life points a lot more because it was just a race at the time. It wasn't about maintaining a solid position as much.
Magic Jammer and 7 Tools of the Bandit.
Yeah,
on
it
the
was
other hand,
considered
did
bad.
see immediate
Well, I mean, isn't that like I remember when like Jellyfish Bird, like the Mercharvis came out? Not Jellyfish Bird, when Jellyfish came out. I remember people saying like you know whenever like new cards get announced and then people like look at the list and be like if is this good or not. I think same with I forgot what cards. There's some other cards, and then there were people saying like, "Oh, this is bad," like nobody's gonna run it. I'm just like, I don't know, like, Stolen was slept on for too long. They want their 4K life points. 以前黄金摊贩100血还是100吓人的. No, but like if you play for 8K, if your full health is 8K, you use it, right? Let's say you use it as 4K. Break Eyes is 3,000, like, and you can't just immediately summon it, right? So unless you have flute and stuff, so it takes like at least 2 or 3 turns to kill you if you only have 4K left. Yu-Gi-Oh! Player are bad at telling you what cards are good and bad. No, that's what I mean. Like a lot of times, well, I mean, okay, Jellyfish might be different, but it's just like everybody will react to it, and then sometimes like, well, okay, Jellyfish is maybe a bad example because it wasn't like the entire community was like this is trash. It was like, but I'm just saying, like, it might be like people just, it's like nobody was thinking about like they don't think it's good enough, and then nobody plays it, right? So just like, it's like a default to not do it. I mean, I'm talking about for the Soul and Judgment here that they're talking about.
widespread
Yeah, they care
success,
about lab
with
points,
Magic
yeah,
Jammer
yeah.
being the more popular.
But I'm just
of the
saying,
two.
even if you
Despite
pay
how
half
good
your
many of these
4K,
new
like
traps
you'll still
were,
be
the Power
fine for at
5
least
were
like 2
still
or
the
3
best
turns.
cards in the game, and negating
Yeah, you
any
still
of them
have
was typically
Swords of the
better than
like Revealing
negating
Light,
another
no?
trap card.
Like,
Less
oh,
info
but what
at the
if they Raigeki
time.
me? I
Yeah.
spent all this time setting up my entire field, and they're just gonna destroy it all. Then they started to realize, hey, I can use stuff in my hand to kind of substitute the destruction.
That said, there was one new
Got
trap
info
card
from
in the set that
magazines?
could give the Power 5 a run for their money. Mirror Force also
go.
had an negated monster attacks, but what
Yes,
was much more
revolver.
important was after it negated the attack.
Mirror Force is just, it's a board wipe, but it's a board wipe that you get to use on your opponent's turn, which I think what was so appealing about it.
Especially with Mirror Force, where people have to manage the resource, not
What
overcome
mana I
it.
get to use it?
That's when that evolution started to really take place in TCG anyway.
The monsters added in Metal Raiders were just as, if not even more impactful than the new traps. First of all, there were 2 new monsters that challenged La Jin's position as the game's most
Oh, the
powerful
fish.
level 4 monsters, 7-colored fish and Dark Elf. These 2 almost immediately made many of the normal monsters that had been popular before the release of Metal Raiders obsolete. With 7-colored fish in the game, there was no reason to play Neo or Battle Ox, and cards like Mystical Elf and Giant Soldier
Everything not
Stone were
1,000,
a lot less useful
800,
than
we
Dark
don't
Elf
fucking
since they
care.
couldn't be used to attack.
People started to identify, like, they started min-maxing. If you want to summon a level 4 monster, it has to have 1,800 attack.
At
or else
least
it's worthless.
This set also
18,000.
included plenty of good effect monsters, and most of them followed the same design philosophy as the ones in Legend of Blue Eyes in both starter decks. A lot of them could be split into groups based on what they were designed to do, and in most cases this was to manipulate and control resources, but unlike their predecessors, these new cards didn't always do so by removing cards from the field. Magician of Faith and Mask of Darkness, for example, allowed the player to recycle magic and trap cards respectively.
Did it
Equal
actually
as
use
these
those,
two may
though?
seem, Magician of Faith
Was this, like-
definitely the better
was this
card
really
here.
played?
Since magic cards can be activated immediately, recycling them is a lot more effective than recycling trap cards is. Also, at this point, magic cards were just generally better than traps anyway, and most of the good ones were limited to
Was there
one
a
copy
format
per
where
deck.
traps
Because of
were
all of this,
better
she was
than,
good enough to become a metagame
like,
staple,
magic
and
cards?
many
Spell
people
cards?
chose
I don't
to play
think
the
so,
maximum
no.
3 copies of her in their deck. While we're on the subject of spellcaster type effect monsters, there was another really good one released in this set.
Tomato? Add 1,500 or
She
less.
and Sengen mostly did the same thing. They could search the player's deck for
Oh,
pretty
Sengen,
much
yeah,
any
yeah, yeah.
monster they wanted, so long as
The-
that
I feel like
monster
this is
had
the
less
most
than
widely
1,500
used
attack
nowadays,
points
too.
in Sengen's case, or less than 1,500
It was
defense
dumb.
points
I
in
mean, we
Witch's
used this
case.
for
Even though
Yada.
the card pool was very small
For
at this
Chaos
point,
Yada?
these two had a vast range of search.
Chaos
targets.
Emperor
They
Dragon,
could
yeah.
even
Well, I
search
mean,
for each
the
other, and
Empress
triggering
Dragon
their
is
effects
not
wasn't difficult
in
at
Metal
all.
Raiders
None
yet,
of the
no?
other effect monsters released in this set were anywhere close to as popular as Sengen, Witch, or Magician of Faith. But
Yeah, that's
there
what
were
I
still a
mean. Okay, yeah,
handful
it's like
worth
these 3
mentioning.
cards are
Crash
like the
Clown and
most
Dream
used.
Clown saw
Yeah, the
occasional
clown ones
success as
are-
the focus of the brand new clown control deck.
Where you're
Clown
actually
control?
trying to like kind of protect your clowns and switch them back and forth from defense, attack, and pop things while also using resource cards like Sangan and Witch.
Is
I
that
believe
considered
that's one of the
stun? That's
other
stun,
decks that
no?
pops up
Like
in
Hana
recent
Hana,
art.
that's
At
just
the same
stun.
time, White Magical Hat and Masked Sorcerer laid the foundation for hand control, which was nowhere near as powerful as
I've
it would
never
eventually
seen
become at
Masked
this point, but
Soccer
saw light
Server before.
experimentation in a meta that was still mostly dominated by Beatdown and Dragon Rush. The main thing that kept these monsters out of the spotlight was their stats.
What
Unlike
House
most
of
of the other
Champs?
staple effect monsters of the time,
Oh, that's
these
his
cards
voice?
didn't do anything upon
I did not know
being
that
sent
was
to the
him.
graveyard. In order to get anything out of their effects, players actually needed to keep them on the field,
I see, I
and doing
see.
so was pretty difficult when cards like Legend, Dark Elf, and 7-colored fish were all over the place. The clowns could be protected by cards like Wabaku and Mirror Force, and their effects could be used to get rid of any
阴间
monsters more
卡姆
powerful
小
than
丑，
them,
但小丑
but
没
there
啥
weren't
用
a
吧？好
lot
像
of。ways to reliably
Is this
trigger
clown
white magical
control really-
attacks effect.
really like
There
a
were
big meta
handful of
thing?
halfway decent equipment
Clown
magic
control was
cards
a deck,
released in this
but-
set that provided monsters with pretty
Was it-
substantial
was it
attack
like
point
tier
boosts,
1
but none
though?
of
I
them
don't
were
think
as strong
so.
as they needed to be to turn
It
White
was?
Magical Hat into an actual threat.
There wasn't enough to really buff him up yet. You don't have actually to spare, but like people do start to get the idea that like
No
if I
quick
can
fill
do
yet.
that, it's great.
The best magic card in the set, without a doubt, was Heavy Storm. This card is Dark Hole, but for magic and trap cards, and it was invaluable for dealing with problematic pieces of disruption like Trap Hole and Mirror Force.
Heavy Storm taught people how to be conservative.
It ended up making it.
No,
where you just
I'm
can't
gonna
set
just use
instant
that
macro.
shit.
It's like you always have to fear and respect Storm.
Because while Heavy Storm was in the format, if
Man,
you went like set
Eater
5
Bug Virgin
past,
Stone wasn't
Heavy Storm
available.
was going
Viable?
To literally
I
just
see.
obliterate you.
As with the
Okay.
previous batch of cards, many of these new
So
cards
does that
were
Fandra,
strong
huh?
enough that it called for an update to the ban list. In July 2002, just 1 month following the set release, Mirror Force was limited, and Sengen, Witch of the Black Forest,
Limited?
and Heavy Storm were all semi-limited.
Bruh.
As was the case before, most decks were
Pretty sure
largely
Beatdown's
composed
still
of a
the
bunch
best
of the
deck.
same good staples,
What
and only
Beatdown?
really diverged
Oh,
in
you mean like beat down? Just you need to attack to kill
the Dragon
the.
Rush were still
Unless
different
you're
enough
doing
that they
what?
were given different
Deck
names,
out?
and both were still all over.
There's
the
no
place.
worm
There
yet.
was now an even more noticeable slant.
It wasn't
in
very
favor
meta,
of
but it was
Genmu as the
playable deck. Okay.
consistency
That's what I
gap
mean. I don't
between
think it
these
was
decks had grown
like.
wider. Which of the
It
black
wasn't like
fours
tier
could grab
1,
Summon
no.
Skull straight from the deck, and Magic Jammer could negate the Flute of Summoning Dragon. Now that Mirror Force was also a part of the equation, actually keeping a Blue Eyes on the field was slightly more challenging, and while this applied to beat down players as well, it was a far less serious problem for them due to how much easier it was for them to summon their boss monster. Dragon Rush players could still take advantage of the new search network by using either Sengen or Witch to retrieve Lord of D, but this was only helpful if they had both the Flute of Summoning Dragon and one or more dragon monsters to summon with it already in their hand. Another big way this format differed from the last was in the
broken
availability
cards
of staple
here.
cards. Most of the good stuff released before Metal Raiders was included in one of the two structure decks, the only exceptions being Raigeki and Pot of Greed. Both of these cards were also pretty affordable, especially when compared to Mirror Force and Magic Jammer, which demanded a much heftier price. Other cards like Heavy Storm and
it was only at
were
one
also
though, so you
somewhat
don't
pricey.
get
So
one
this
though.
time
You just
around,
need one
many
though.
of the format's best cards didn't see as much play as they otherwise would have, solely due to how expensive they were on the secondary market.
Summon
And
Skull
as bad
because
as
only
this may
one
have seemed
tribute.
at the time, this problem was about to get a lot worse. In the months following the release of Metal Raiders, Yu-Gi-Oh's competitive scene began to pick up steam. There were no high-profile tournaments to speak of yet, but sanctioned events were hosted locally and
OST?
regularly at game stores all over the world. Perhaps to incentivize players to attend these events,
Everyday
licensed
out of
tournament
band
stores
cards
were getting
there.
tournament packs, unique
Charging
boosters
guys
that could only be obtained by participating in an official tournament.
This
The
way,
first
yeah.
tournament pack entered
Tournament
circulation
pack
on
seeds
September
first
1st,
season.
and it introduced 30 new cards. to
Anybody
the
have
game.
that?
Most of these new
Anybody
cards
had
weren't
that?
good. As a matter of fact, all of them were
Why,
pretty
let's
awful,
go.
except for one.
Oh, let's go. Look, 54 points.
If you played Yu-Gi-Oh back in the day, you understand Mechanical Chaser's legacy.
18.
The goat.
The
50.
one card to beat legit. By 50 points.
And for the longest time, that mattered a lot.
Up until this point, the player base may have taken for granted how accessible the game's best monsters had been. 7-colored fish and Legion were anything but expensive, even though the metagame had practically been constructed around them.
We
Of course,
just
this was
need
only true
18
because
and
they were
1.
easy to get a hold
You know, we
of.
just need
Mechanical
just a
Chaser
little bit
definitely
higher.
proved that.
But the thing is, no one could really get their hands on this card because it was a tournament.
Oh yeah, it was
Tournament
OST
packs only
pack.
came with 3 cards per pack instead of the usual 9, and they were also less likely to contain
Shaking my
foil
head.
cards. To put things into perspective, Axe Raider is a card that would have been outdated by
You
the time
gotta
it first
play to
started,
win here. I gotta
but
get
because
that
of how rare
pack.
It was more expensive than many of the
Very
best cards
expensive,
in
yeah,
the
yeah,
game.
yeah.
Axe Raider was a really expensive card when it first came
How
out.
much was it?
Mechanical Chaser, on the other hand, was
Do we know the
actually
price?
really
I'm
good,
curious
and
about
it
the
was
price
even
now.
more rare than Axe Raider was.
200.
Yeah,
$200.
TP01.
As
$200?
minor as the attack difference may seem,
$200 in 2002? Was Magic that expensive?
Chaser was essentially a better version of a card.
And
that
you
had
run
been the
3,
bread
right?
and
So
butter of
600.
competitive play all
This
the
is
way
more
up until
expensive than
its release. It
jellyfish.
was bound to have a noticeable
This is
effect
more
on
expensive than
However,
one
seeing
jellyfish.
as each copy of the card was worth $200, it was pretty rare to run into somebody who played 1, much less 3 of it in their deck.
I'd be like, kind of be like, I have all the money here. I got 3 copies.
The advantage that these few players had over the rest of the player base was pretty substantial, though.
It was just a landslide. So I have this guy from my locals named Kyle Miller, and he got a hold of 3 mechanical.
Bro remembers the person that got 3 copies. $200 for a single card that has a whooping ass, 50 more attack, and still more attack.
Kyle started to go
I mean,
to
no,
these
it's
50-60 man tournaments, taking down like every single one, winning full boxes. And Billy only remembers the frustration of running into Mech Chaser time and time again. and
Billy,
it just being this money wall.
Pay to win，对啊，pay to win 啊，因为他的 TPE 就是就是赛事他给你的担保，就是不能随便买到的，然后暴力有敌。That needs some more. Yeah, we just need
2
one
weeks
more
after the
attack,
release of the
like
first
higher
tournament
than
pack,
1.
Magic Ruler made its way onto store shelves. While Metal Raiders did much to expand the game's pool of viable trap cards, as its name
还没到，
implies,
还没到，
this
他
set was
一个
heavily
一个
focused on
一个
magic
卡。
cards.
This is the third one, right? Yeah, this is the third one.
A magic-themed booster set may have seemed like a bad idea at the time, since for it to be any good, it would have to include at least a few magic cards as strong as the Power 5. Against
Power
all
5.
odds, Magic Ruler actually pulled this off by introducing 5 power
What?
play magic cards of its own. The 3
Mystic?
most famous cards in the set, Confiscation, Delinquent Duo, and the Forceful Sentry,
That's a ban
all allowed
card.
the player to remove cards from their opponent's hand. Delinquent Duo was technically the best, since it discarded 2 cards at the same time.
Delinquent Duo, I don't know who in testing thought that card was okay.
Like, Delinquent Duo was such a degenerate card. Rather than just playing your own game, you're just not letting your opponent play at all. They have to
That is what Yu-Gi-Oh is. You do not let your opponent play. 我不知道对手还游戏吗？
lose 2 cards.
I wish finish the series. What do you mean? I'm assuming he's working on part 2. The sweat was a
So your starting
mistake.
hand is now
Are you
3
sure?
cards.
But the others had the advantage of letting the player choose which card they wanted to get rid of.
I'm just gonna look at your hand and get rid of your card.
Confiscation,
Yeah!
even though it rips one, the hand knowledge that you get from your opponent is almost better than ripping out a card with Delinquent Duo. So, like, that's a debate that's been going on forever.
At this point, life points is starting to matter less and less, and people are realizing that, hey, control is probably the way to go. As long as you have at least 1 life point left. You don't lose. And that's like what Magic Ruler really pushed for, like confiscation. A lot of
So I'm
these
assuming
cards,
now they
have
use all
life
Soul
point
and Judgment
costs.
because we
Painful
don't care
Choice was a
about
few
paying
years
half
ahead of its
then.
time, but it was by no means bad because of this. It could turn itself into any
Look
one
at
of
those
the 5 best
cards,
cards
just
left in
these
the player's
3.
deck, and with the help of
Look
already
perfectly
popular
fine
cards
to
like
me.
Monster Reborn and Magician of Faith, it could give them access to 2 or even 3 of the 5 cards.
If you have 5 ideal targets
Tomato!
to put into your hand, you can just put out all 5.
Painful Choice really doesn't take its own towards chaos, I want to say. But right now, people are trying to figure
This is
out,
what Yu-Gi
can
Oh!
I use
want?
it with Magician of
Yes,
Faith and
Yu-Gi
make it
Finally, there was Snatch Steal. Unlike most equipped
Snatch
cards,
Steal,
Snatch
Snatch
Steal didn't do anything to beef up the monsters of the person playing it. It was actually meant to be equipped to an opponent's monster, at which point control
You made a joke saying I could play Yu-Gi-Oh! And reading it at the same time. Turns out that joke was less of a joke and more of a truth because I got through my entire game of UA before my opponent finished his turn on Yu-Gi-Oh!
the equipped monster would change. Though Snatch Steal was certainly the best equipped card in the set, it wasn't the only good one. Magic Ruler included a handful of others, and among them the
Let's
best was
fucking go
Access to
equip
Spare.
cards!
Simply put, this was as good as it got in terms of
Wee
cards
Wee
that boosted
Singer.
attack points, and unlike Stim Pack, it didn't have any glaring drawbacks. This
Messenger of Peace, wasn't it?
contributions
Doesn't
extend
this have a
beyond
Sun card?
individual cards it added, as it also introduced 3 new kinds of magic cards to the game. Quick play cards are a sort of hybrid
Ritual
between
spell. I
attack
already,
cards
I
and
didn't
traditional
even,
magic
I don't
cards.
even
They
remember
can be
that shit.
activated from the hand just like regular magic cards, but if they are set face down, then they can be
Statue
activated
and
during other
trio
players'
for,
turn, just
oh
like
yeah,
attack cards can. Magic Ruler included 4 of these, but
NTR,
only 2
use
saw
your
any
as
actual success.
material.
Rush Recklessly was like reinforcements, but better in every way. It didn't need to be set before being used, and it also offered a bigger attack boost. It wasn't as strong as Axe of Despair, but it was far more versatile, and it wasn't really susceptible to being destroyed the same way equipped cards were. This was also fairly important following the release of Magic Ruler, since the set also featured Mystical Space Typhoon, a new way for players to
You know
remove
what kind of
threats in the back row. While the card lacked the
ZZ,
overwhelming power of Heavy Storm, like Fissure, it was a much-needed alternative to a mass removal card that many players ran as many copies of as they could.
Spell and trap destruction back in the old days of Yu-Gi-Oh! They viewed it as like, wow, this card is really powerful.
Continuous cards are exactly what they sound like. They stay on the field after being activated until they're destroyed. There were
正版，
also 4
我
of these
操，
in Magic Ruler,
牛
and
逼！
while none of them were good enough to be staples, 3 of them
Chain
formed
energy.
the backbone of the first popular burn deck. The goal of a burn deck is to kill the other player through effect. This was possible before
What's that
the
thing,
release of
the
Magic
fire-
Ruler,
the
thanks to
fireball?
cards like Just Desserts, but it was nowhere near as practical as it became with the help of many newly released cards. Depending on what the other person was playing, Messenger of Peace had the potential to be a strictly more powerful version of Swords of Revealing Light, though it couldn't stop the other player from attacking.
I just
with
realized there's a pigeon on him. Hinotama? Yeah, isn't that part of burn cards? In the burn decks?
weaker monsters like Sengen, it was perfectly capable of keeping the game's most powerful monsters at bay, and this was important as it meant that anyone who
He got
played
a
it had
dose symbol piece.
significantly more
Oh.
time to accrue resources that they could use to burn through their opponent's life points.
He
Cards
should've
like
got
the
Yada,
Kazi
no.
and Just Desserts were
No.
obviously effective enough at this, but they couldn't hold a candle to Toll and Chain Energy.
So for those of you that don't know, for Chain Energy,
Oh my god, MKHL40? Right, I think I've said that wrong.
Player now.
I
No
like
matter
him.
what they want to play, it's gonna have to pay 1,000 life points to normal summon, special summon, set, or activate cards from his or her respective hand. Oh god. Oh, boy, our opponent drew pull. So each player is gonna have to pay 500 life points to
MCall,
advance on that
MCall.
game state. What a combo! Enjoy. Only playing 5 cards, by the way. This is really edgy game state. Like, holy shit. This might go to deck out.
The set's most interesting additions to the card pool were ritual cards. Ritual monsters were a brand new.
Do we
kind of
care about
monster that
this?
could not
Did
be
we
normal
cared about
summoned and
this?
Instead, had to be special summoned through the use of ritual magic cards. While this was cool in theory, in practice, the ritual summoning mechanic was deeply flawed. Most of them
Full
had no
ritual
effect, and to
burger.
summon them, a player needed a lot of resources readily available.
Like rituals, just mechanically, and this is like before we got a lot of the stuff we have now. But like, it's a
Yeah, I don't think so.
3-card investment. Well, technically 2 because you keep the ritual monster.
Minus
but
3
you need
for
to
just
specifically
ritual.
have your ritual monster, your ritual spell, and then a monster to use as tribute for the ritual spell. So you use the ritual spell and the monsters. You neg
That's
2
it, quick.
to summon the monster.
Yeah,
This
minus
created
3.
numerous issues with consistency, as oftentimes a player would have one or the other, but not both. Then, on top of that, the player needed to tribute other monsters as part of the process, all to summon a card that offered.
The only
nothing but an
retro
open
that
set.
matters
And it's
is
like,
only
this is all you're
one.
getting
What do you
for your
mean?
cards. It was just, yeah.
The only exception was Relinquished, who
Oh, that's
actually
what
had an
Relinquished?
extraordinarily powerful effect. It was also by a wide margin the lowest level ritual monster in the game, which also meant that it was the easiest to summon. These things weren't enough to completely make up for the previous motion
this
issues
point
with
of it-
ritual
yeah, the
summoning,
burger,
but
right?
It brought enough to the table that it was occasionally played. Only in decks built specifically to take advantage of it, however.
Yeah, skip the eye. Rush the
Speaking of
moment? What
monsters,
rush the
despite
moment?
the set's theme, there were
Peacock.
actually more monsters than magic cards in it, but only a handful of them made their way into the metagame. Many of the monsters in the set followed in the footsteps of Sengen and Witch by offering players resources upon being sent to the graveyard.
Why happy music not? Cybertruck. Tomato.
There were 6 different monsters that could all, upon being destroyed by battle, summon any monster of a specific attribute straight from the deck, as long as the
Near
monster
dear
had
to my
1500
heart.
or
Dry
less
Chant
attack.
Archetype that got into
Theoretically, this
Yu-Gi-Oh.
was
I
even
see.
better than what
No, I'm
Sengen and
just
Witch
saying,
offered,
like,
since
it's
these
the
effects
method
summoned
is
their targets instead of
not
just adding
like
them
you
to the
need
hand,
you're like
but
you
the
need
many
like
stipulations attached to the process kept
There's
most of these
more
cards out of the
restriction
competitive discourse.
to do
Mystic
it.
Tomato stood out from
At
the
least
rest,
now?
however, and almost immediately saw
Like-
moderate success,
like what,
since
2000
its ability
what,
to summon
2003?
dark
What is
monsters
this,
made it a direct
2002?
pipeline to many of a player's most powerful tools.
No, this
Nimble
already
Momonga
third-
and
the
Giant
third-
Germ did
the
something
third,
similar, but were at least initially not
the
quite as
release,
popular.
right?
Unlike the elemental
2003?
recruiters, these cards only let players summon extra copies of themselves instead of picking whatever card they wanted, but in exchange, the player
Legendary
was allowed
Giant
to summon
Germ?
up to 2 monsters at once instead of just 1. Since Momonga summoned
Why
itself
does
in
this
defense
person
position
have 3 tomatoes?
and also caused a bigger net swing in life points upon being destroyed, it was more popular than Giant Germ, but both were mostly ignored in favor of Mystic Tomato for quite some time. Momonga was certainly present in the metagame following Magic Ruler's release, but it wouldn't truly catch on until much, much later.
I love Nimble Momonga. I played it automatically at this point, actually. Like, I caught on to it somewhat early.
One thing people don't like is that you could draw 2. This is one of the first cards people start this guy. Well, you don't want to draw 2 of these.
None of these monsters could compare to Cyberjar, though. Upon being flipped face up, it
Shaking
could
my
wipe
head.
out an entire board and then give both players 5 cards split between their hand and field.
Cyberjar is freaking crazy.
I love the card, but it was really a double-edged sword. Like, giving your opponent 5 cards, giving yourself 5 cards, blowing up the entire field.
Cyberjar to me is such a Yu-Gi-Oh card. Like, it is one of the most high variance, ridiculous effects I have ever seen in my life. Like,
Just
it's just like,
man,
there's no
read
other way to put
that.
it. This card could not exist in any other card game.
On October 1st, 2 weeks after the release of Magic Ruler, the Forbidden Unlimited list received
Hong.
another update, which limited Cyberjar, all of the hand control cards, Painful Choice, Snatch Steal, and a 7th card named Upstart Goblin that had yet to receive much attention.
You
The
play
player base
well,
wasn't given any
Cyberjar?
time to
Okay.
adapt to these changes before the next major shift in the meta, however, as this ban list update happened on the same day as the release of the
Second
tournament
season.
pack.
Okay. Shaking my head.
Warping Jar is such a good card.
Morphing Jar was really the only good card in the pack, and like Mechanical Chaser before it, it was an ultra rare. Whether it was better than Mechanical Chaser or not in the short term is up for debate, but it was certainly very powerful. Even though it couldn't nuke the board or special summon monsters like Cyberjar could, using it was generally a lot less risky since Cyberjar often left the other player with a lot more to work with. At this point, it was actually the only card in the game that could simultaneously leave the other player with less cards than they started with, while leaving the person playing it with more cards than they started with.
In terms of like swings of card advantage, Morphing Jar is definitely up there. I think one of the things I like the most
yeah.
about Morphing Jar was when it comes to the more psychological aspect of Yu-Gi-Oh! And bluffing, you could just set, like, let's say, a Man-Eater bug.
I don't
and just
care,
set,
I'm
like,
gonna
your
just
whole
attack.
hand of what's actually settable, and your opponent is gonna 90% of the time think you have Morphing Jar, and
I
play
am not.
like you have
I'm the
Morphing Jar,
10%
and
not
that
gonna
way you
just
can
do this
basically
shit.
control what your opponent does.
You're not
If you
gonna,
set
you're
everything
not gonna
now, it
bait
doesn't
me,
signal
okay?
Just like I have the thing to negate Storm, now it also can signal I have Morphing Jar.
You know, other cards don't
No, you
necessarily create
don't.
a dynamic like that a lot of the time. A lot of cards, you know, they get played and they do what they're supposed to do. A card like Morphing Jar that does more than what it just says on the card, I think always just sets a very interesting precedent for how the game progresses later on.
Like Mechanical Chaser, this card probably would have been a staple if it was more accessible, but because of how expensive it was,
Is it
was
also
just too
$200?
difficult for the average player to get a hold of, for it to have even a somewhat widespread presence in the early metagame.
I traded like almost this whole binder for a Morphing Jar back then.
And then, what does that mean? They didn't get it?
Binder for a Morphing Jar back then.
Oh, he did! Wait a
Presence
second, he
in the
did.
early metagame.
I traded like almost this whole
Yeah,
binder
he did.
for a
He
Morphing
did.
Jar back then.
So it still works. I need this music in my like playlist. These musics.
After the second tournament pack.
Oh, we're still in
Seeing as the last booster set was
2002?
only a month old,
What the fuck? They released this in the 5th box, no? Yeah, only a month they released a box. They're just printing. They're just printing money
the
here.
metagame was still in the process of developing around all the new cards it added. Beatdown continued to dominate in the post.
Yeah, we still in 2002.
Have been a lot more varied.
We
Clown
still in
Control
year
and
1
Dragon
here.
Rush managed to stick around, and they'd been joined by Burn, Relinquished, and Hand Control decks. Barely anyone was sure what the best version of each deck was at the time of Pharaoh Servant's release, however, and it provided all of them with even more tools to experiment.
66 common
Most
cards.
of the good stuff in this
Okay.
set came from its pool of magic and trap cards, but that isn't to say it didn't have any good monsters. Goblin Attack Force took the idea at the core of cards like Dark Elf to a brand new extreme by being a level 4 monster with 2,300 attack points. At this point, its value was debatable
23.
because Dark Elf could still deal with anything that this thing was meant to deal with, except for another newcomer from Pharaoh Servant named the Fiend Mega Cyber. This card was notable for being one of the first monsters in the game that could essentially special summon itself for free.
Monsters started to see a bit of shifting as well. You got stuff like Goblin Attack Force. Like, monsters were getting stronger and easier to summon.
Neither card attained staple status, but both of them
You guys know Cash Hero, right?
in particularly aggressive builds of the beatdown strategy. Even outside of these decks, Goblin Attack Force specifically was fairly popular due to its sheer attack power.
You don't really need to attack with Goblin Attack Force. You can always sit on it like a very aggressive wall of some sort.
This set also introduced a new member of the Jar series of flip monsters. Like Morphing Jar and Cyber Jar before it, Morphing Jar 2 was a complete blowout whenever its effect resolved. Its power ceiling wasn't quite as
Shaking my
outrageous as
head.
its predecessors, but unlike both of them, it could effectively end the battle phase since it got rid of all attack position monsters on the field, and all the monsters that replaced them had to be set face down.
Morphing Jar 2 was the most annoying card, combined with Morphing Jar.
Well, you
1.
also-
The
you
thing
need
is,
Morphing Jar
2
though,
could summon
no.
out just more
Which is hard to
Morphing Jar
get.
2 over and over and over again to mill out someone.
Yeah, Cyber Dragon, if the opponent doesn't have anything, it's a special summon.
By this point, a lot of players had cut many of the low-level monsters that dominated the early game in favor of newer alternatives, but there still weren't any alternatives to the best of the original high-level monsters. This would change following the release of Pharaoh Servant.
Fiber Jar. Yeah. Wait, they don't have Fiber Jar yet, no? Let's go.
Jinzo almost immediately replaced Summon Skull as the best boss monster in the game. While its attack stat wasn't quite as high, this was hardly a problem thanks to its powerful effect.
Genmu is gifted with incredible scanning abilities.
Trap Hole, Wabaku, and Mirror Force had always been pretty annoying pieces of disruption that made it really difficult to reliably tribute summon a monster.
不是公司里膨胀，是连招出来都简单吗？
Do
容易招
anything
出来，
with a tribute summon monster.
像
as it
巨
was
神怒
already
威。
Genzo didn't care about any of these cards. None of them could do anything to him, or even be used at all while he was on the field. This made choosing to summon him a lot safer than doing the same with other high-level monsters. which
Released
many players
together.
agreed was much more valuable than.
Is it
100.
because they were trying to catch up? Because they were released later than they were like released later than OCG now.
For attack points?
Just off the top of my head, Genzo was probably the most impactful card in that set at the time, just because it really changed the dynamic with trap cards and with cards like Mirror Force. Yes, it was 100 attack less than a Summon Skull, but like, I mean, the payoff of not having to worry about anything in your opponent's back row, like, that was just monumental.
Poo trap card. Look, Genzo next to it. Wait, wasn't that Genzo next to it? What the fuck? Wait. Huh? Okay.
This card cancels out all your magic cards.
Not my magic cards.
Pharaoh's Servant also introduced the ultimate foil to Genzo, a continuous trap card named Imperial Order. This was, without
Nice
question,
TikTok,
the single
I
best
know.
trap card released up to this point, even eclipsing Mirror Force in terms of potential impact.
Order was
Then let's
frustrating
go.
all the way through Chaos, man. Your power cards are so many spells.
Magic cards were still the strongest type of card in the game, just like they always had been, so the ability to deny another player access to them altogether was obviously very useful. Since it was a trap card, Order could
No,
also
Genzo
be
was on the
activated
field, it
in
was
response
part-
to magic cards, allowing it to act as a sort
okay,
of
okay, I
pseudo-magic
see.
jammer.
Yeah,
Its
because I was like,
optional
if Genzo was
maintenance
next to it,
cost
then
also
he
meant
can't
that
use the
on
trap
top of
card.
everything else, the person playing it could get rid of it whenever they felt like it by simply choosing not to pay for it.
Imperial Order, like right now, of course, we got the errated one where you can't turn it off.
Don't
And
ask, the
back then,
explanation
it
would
was
take
just
forever. What are you
free
talking about?
Spell negation. You had like Solemn Judgment, Magic Jammer, but Imperial
Hold on,
Order
that
was
was
like,
true.
you just activate this card. You just
Yeah,
got
now
free
we
negation
now
and you
just
don't
a coin flip game.
Yeah,
now.
like you could choose when to turn it off, and that's what made it so powerful. The fact that now you can't is, I honestly think they should have made it that way in the first place.
Just got
because it would've
poo-poo
been a
at
stronger
Reddit?
balancing mechanism. Even to this day, Imperial Order is still played because spell cards are one of, if not like just the most powerful card type because of just how much
Yeah, that guy's
they
so good.
allow you to do. And
Debuff
Imperial
了，削弱
Order
了。
being just one of the biggest roadblocks in wanting to play spell cards, it's it's legendary.
Genzo was one of the only ways to deal with this card, since Order negated most of the back row removal that existed at this point. As a matter of fact, perhaps as a direct response
Isn't
to
that like the
Imperial Order,
only
Pharaoh's
way
Servant
to
introduced
get rid of
players to
it?
Dust Tornado. This was essentially Mystical Space Typhoon in the form of a trap card, which under most circumstances would have made it strictly worse. But the presence of Imperial Order in the metagame made this card a necessity, since it was, aside from Genzo, one of the only reliable ways to remove the card from the field.
Also, the balance didn't change until what, like Massey came out or something. No, in the beginning the balance were same. No, for OCG and TCG, even though they released it later. Like TCG is a little bit later released. Look at all the pixel, bruh.
Call of the Haunted was another trap card alternative to a popular magic card, in this case Monster Reborn. Just like Dust Tornado,
Battle
it
of
was
the
for the
Share.
most
Yeah,
part
Battle
worse
of the
than its
Share.
magic card counterpart, but for
That's
different
not crazy.
reasons. Mystical Space Typhoon was a quick play magic card, so it could already be used during either player's turn. This meant that Dust Tornado didn't really benefit from being a trap card, aside from its utility as a way to destroy Imperial Order. Monster Reborn, on the other hand, was a regular magic card, and thus could only
had
be
weird stuff
activated
for
during the main
TCG.
phase of the turn of its owner.
Okay.
This meant that Call of the Haunted could actually be used in a few interesting ways that Monster Reborn couldn't.
But they Call the Haunted was also really cool too because it started changing the game and how people had to think, because it, like, if your opponent had a set card and they were attacking you with their monsters, if there was a monster in the grave they could resurrect and kill you for game, you could lose if that set card was Call the Haunted, because you could use it like offensively like that, or you could use it defensively to protect yourself from dying, and I think that was pretty cool.
Perhaps in order to compensate for all this added utility, the card was given numerous drawbacks. It could only summon monsters from its owner's graveyard, the monster it summoned had to be an attack position, and if it left the field for any reason, the monster it summoned would be
That's not
destroyed.
really a
These came
setback.
on top of the fact that it couldn't be used immediately.
They're still
like
limited in
Monster
OCG because it
Reborn
was a
could,
problem.
being
They
a
released
trap card
limited
and
in
all. So
TCG.
even considering all of its unique benefits,
Yeah,
it was a
yeah. I
pretty
mean, but like the
substantial
balance
downgrade.
is the
That
balance
said,
is like the
Monster
same. That's what
Reborn's
I mean.
effect was still really powerful, and the card was also limited. So to most players, Call of the Haunted was a welcome addition to the card pool. Strangely, the set featured a second alternative to Monster Reborn as well, except this one was also a magic card. Premature Burial carried with it all of the same stipulations as Call of the Haunted did,
Isn't
with the
Call
only
of
exception,
Call of
of
the
course,
Haunted
being that it
better
didn't
than
have to be
Premature?
set for a turn before being used. Now, in exchange, it was given an additional life point cost on top of everything else. But just like with Call of the Haunted, none of this was enough to dissuade players from using it. Monster Reborn's effect was, again, really good, and there were plenty of people who were more than willing to make these kinds of concessions if it meant that they could essentially run extra copies of it in their deck. The only other magic card in the set whose immediate impact was comparable to Premature Burials was Nobleman of Crossout. This card brought an idea to the forefront of competitive play that had already been introduced but had yet to truly catch on.
It removed from play.
Instead of simply sending certain cards to the graveyard, some cards forced others to be removed from the game entirely, and this was the first high-profile card designed to do that. While this alone would have been enough to set the card apart from other one-for-one removal cards like Fissure and Mystical Space Typhoon, it took things a step further by removing from play all copies of its target from both players' decks. This card was extremely useful given the growing power and popularity of flip monsters, and was one of the only ways aside from Raigeki and Darkhole to deal with them.
Yeah, Crossout definitely changed the dynamic of like flip effect monsters, which, as we said, there's, you know, Cyber Jar, there's Man-Eater Bug, Morphing Jar came out around this time, and for pretty much all future flip effect monsters too, and being able to just deal with set monsters, it doesn't even have to be flip effect monsters, just anything your opponent sets, the fact that you just have a single piece of removal, just
everything just flips.
These 6 cards compose the set's lineup of new competitive staples, but of course they were far from the only new cards to see meta success. Magic Drain and Mirror Wall were decent and cheap alternatives to Magic Jammer and Mirror Force respectively.
Proxy be
Magic
like...
Drain allowed players to ignore Magic Jammer's discard cost, and Mirror Wall had the benefit of not being on the limited list. Ceasefire was a borderline staple card that, while certainly popular, was almost exclusively
I wasn't
played in
even
the side
fucking
deck.
about
It
side
made dealing
deck.
with flip monsters a lot easier, and it also provided a power boost to burn decks. As a matter of fact, this set
Didn't
did
have
quite
to
a
get
bit
rid of
power
ones
up
in your
both
hand.
burn and hand control. Skull Invitation, Burning Land, Minor Goblin Official, Attack and Receive, and Type 0 Magic Crusher all had burn effects, and Gravity Bind, like Messenger of Peace, could be used to keep the player safe from potential attacks. These were by no means game-defining or even definitive for burn decks, but they all saw at least minor experimentation. Hand control, meanwhile, was given Time Seal and Light Force Sword, 2 cards that helped slowly but surely whittle down the resources in another player's hand. The set also featured limiter removal, which was most useful to players who already had 2 of the most expensive cards in the game, Genzo and Mechanical Chaser. This card was one of the
Genzo's
first
also
enablers
expensive?
of a reliable one-turn kill, and was really effective because it was often used in conjunction with Genzo. The ban list in December put many of these powerful cards in check, and even changed the
almost
placements
going to
of some
2003 now.
previously released cards like Witch of the Black Forest. Surprisingly though, given how quickly Pharaoh's Servant had come out following Magic Ruler, the next major shift in the metagame wouldn't happen until
Yada?
March of the following year, when the game would take its furthest leap forward in power yet. On March 1st, Yu-Gi-Oh! Players saw the release of 2 new booster packs, Labyrinth of Nightmare and the much less impactful Tournament Pack 3. At first glance, Tournament Pack 3 may seem like a big deal, since Mechanical Chaser was reprinted in it as a far more accessible super rare, but it just so...
It got power creep. Your $600 cards are not good enough anymore.
Happened that Labyrinth of Nightmare made the card irrelevant with not just one,
bruh.
but 2 new monsters.
Oh, the elf thing. 1,900. 650. We adding 58
Gemini
more
Elf was
again.
a strict upgrade in terms of attack points, and so it became the new face of powerful level 4 monsters.
Gemini Elf, like, you know, we have Mechanical Chaser beat now, hooray!
The other card, Bazoo the Soul Eater, was a bit more interesting. Bazoo's effect let a player remove up to 3 cards in their graveyard from play, and its attack would go up by 300 points.
So also
The card
1,900.
was supposed to specify monsters in its effect, but due to a translation error, any cards in the player's graveyard could be used. This made it very easy.
What?
But due to a translation error, any cards in the player's graveyard
Translation error. No, the magic number now is 1,900.
could be used. This made it very easy to crank Bazoo up to 2,500 attack points, and if the player was low on resources, it could
They fixed it. No, they fixed it after. I don't know. Translation error.
at the very least trade blows with a Gemini elf. Interestingly enough, this set also included a hard counter to Bazoo.
Losing $600 value? Yeah, that's what I mean. Poo-poo, the worst this card?
But it was one of the first monsters in the game to have both a high stat value and a powerful effect.
Gemini Elf was like Super Saiyan 2.
他翻译错了，但是效果不错。Like even if they mistranslate some cards now, I think in Master Duel some of the translations are wrong, but it's like the effect is correct. Like it's, I mean, we're not. That's not paper, but like, I think even in paper, it's like what? It's just wording, no. Like it's not translated wrong. It's just like, it's not like clearly obvious. But then the rules are pretty like, I don't know, pretty like even if it's not straightforward, it wouldn't be like, okay, we don't know if you could do both graves or only my grave.
Everyone can be Super Saiyan now, so all the 1800 beat sticks, they all can gain decent effects now. You got stuff like Kaiku, where it just prevents the graveyard from being manipulated.
Kaiku is a very interesting card because this was like La Jin power creeped like to infinity, you know?
Kaiku could not only get rid of resources from another player's graveyard, but it also had an effect that prevented the opponent from removing cards in the graveyard from play, which by extension could stop Bazoo from increasing its attack points in the first place.
So he's still making part 2, no? Like we're gonna see part 2. I don't know when, but he's in the making though.
Speaking of Bazoo,
TCG 效果不一般啊，没有，这个不叫翻译错误，这个叫 TCG OCG 的判定不一样。Like there's specific cards even now for OCG and TCG, they have different rulings, but that's not translation error. That's just it has different. I think even for chaining, 我记得好像什么是发动还是什么连锁，我记得好像 OCG 和 TCG 有些东西也是不一样的。That's not translation error though. That's just different. TCG decided to do their stuff different than OCG.
Kaiku also benefited from a similar translation error.
At first, they're mistranslated, and you can
He's called Swag? That's not his channel name though. Robinell?
remove any card for these cards. So Kaiku could remove any 2 from the graveyard. Bazoo could remove any.
不是 OC 是 Deku TCG 必须发动经典暗魂。他现在没有改吧？就将错就错是吧？Is a channel he made for this series. I see. Okay. What's his other channel then? Just so I can go subscribe. TG 暗魂那会儿没有一回合一次，下目多少招就拿多少招，没有一回合一次是他没有加 once per turn. Then that's just entirely printed incorrectly. It's all Naruto stuff. It's fine. No, I'll just go follow. Oh. No, there's like One Piece stuff. There's like One Piece, Dragon Ball, Hunter x Hunter. It's just what's it called? All the Shonen Jump stuff. Wow, that's a lot. That's a lot of videos. What else? Is it just those? Yeah. Oh, and then Death Note. 10 years ago, what are Super Saiyans, bruh? He's a Jason. True. But I don't think they don't do the same type of videos though, no?
23, and the trap card, most importantly called Skull Layer, could remove any cards from the
知道原始小龙翻译错误影响太大，才必须贴文。原始小龙是 Primate. Wait, Primate was incorrectly translated in TCG? K 是这样的。
graveyard to pop. So if you go read Skull Lair, it's along the same concept, and you remove from play any number, and instead of monster cards, it's cards in your graveyard. Destroy a face-up monster on the field whose level is equal to the number of cards. So for just 4 cards out of your graveyard, you can go pop any level 4 that's getting summoned.
One more monster of note was Zombira the Dark. In a vacuum, without taking card price and availability into consideration, this card may not seem very good. But Gemini Elf was a secret rare, making it very difficult for the average player to get their hands on.
Secret rare?
Zombira, however, was a common.
They know what the fuck they're doing. They're like, 1,900 attack. Let's make this card unaccessible. It fixed it. It's fixed already. The primate card. I mean, no. I think they said that it was the primate dragon card was translated incorrect, and then it was a problem, so they had to fix it. But there's cards that never got fixed now. Even now. Not these boomer cards.
Restrictions, he could kill 1, potentially even 2 copies of Gemini Elf all by himself. Yeah. Like they missed the on your own turn. It becomes like on both turns. In addition to many high-attack monsters, this set included 2 extremely powerful equipped cards. Mage Power and United We Stand both boosted the attack and defense of the equipped monster relative to the number of cards the player controlled. They allowed monsters to easily reach some pretty absurd attack values, and they even brought about another offshoot of
Crush Card Virus never got fixed. I think there's cards even now that didn't got fixed now.
That had been released all the way back in Magic Ruler. Many decks that didn't play Maha still ran both of these new cards as well, but they weren't stable.
Wait, so then if, let's say there's a card that has different translation in roles, which one are we using? TCG? Is it still TCG since we're using TCG banlist? OTG true for cost, the TCG text is true for effect. And then that is also translation error, no? TG Lanagwani. Yeah. I think like there's something different also in Exo Sister, like for effect.
Staples the same way any of the 3 new monsters were.
Mage Power and United We Stand, like you said, it's like the
depends
first,
on the head judge.
Good.
Oh, we're talking about words, since that's the only time when OCG and TCG. Well, I mean the ban list is United, which is the ban list is TCG. But then if I play a card. Well, I guess that hasn't happened. Has that happened? Like current meta cards, they don't have that problem. TG 比赛按照 TG 文本，我知道，但是，我知道，但是如果说世界赛呢？世界赛是 OT 核表是按照 TCG 进卡表吧？也不叫 TCG 进卡表，就是2个都进掉吧。It's not TCG banlist. It's like both banlist, which TCG has more banlist, right? So that's what I'm asking. Like if let's say hypothetically, if something like that happens, so like let's say I'm playing as a TCG, like I don't know, like I'm from US, like, and then there's a JP player, right? And then I play a card has a different effect in OCG because of mistranslation. Am I rating my card, which is the TCG effect? 硬生生的 didn't respond. Estel Sister Monster card, a man turn and summon, but OCG they're optional. Yeah, it has come in tournaments. I mean, the only time it comes up is when there's OCG plus TCG, because that's what I mean by if you're just playing OCG, then it's just all OCG effects. If you're playing TCG, it's all in TCG, it's all in TCG effects. I'm asking like when is it mixed? Even though I'm playing the TCG card, which has the TCG effect. Are we using the OCG effect or are we using the TCG effect? That's what I'm asking. 没人气等于懒得改卡，等于没用。那如果我就说，假如有这个情况发生呢 ？Like, that's what I mean. Like, I'm assuming currently in roles they don't have, like, cards that have different effects are not used, so they don't have a situation like that, right? And TCG, it's play as Brendan or ask the judge. Yeah, I'm not asking about TCG though. I'm asking about roles. Because if you're playing in your format, then there's no confusion. Everybody is like you using the whatever format you're playing. I know Master Duel uses OCG. I'm not talking about Master Duel. I mean, of course, Master Duel uses OCG. What are you talking about? 说没人用倒不是。我的意思说，如果万一如果说就是目前是没有发生这个情况，但是如果发生这个情况，我怎么办呢？参赛报卡组报上去，赛前里添一笔。添一笔是什么意思？是改成 OCG 吗？就是它的效果是到底是用哪个效果呢 ？I think there's a confusion. I see. Yeah, that's why I'm curious, like what the judge or what they do. The roll with Thunder Dragon where it happened. I'll look for detail. Okay.
Equip spells just because of like it seems silly that these cards used to
Because it doesn't have to be like so. For example, there's stuff that's like I play something right, and then it's like if the effect, let's just say like I'm playing the TCG effect, and then in OC, like in TCG, like I'm just making this shit up, okay? But like there might be something where like your opponent might respond, but in TCG you can't respond, right? So for example, I play something, and then because of the timing, like like there's a time to like I don't know, like before damage sip or whatever shit. So it's like maybe like in OCG you could ash this, but in TCG they don't have that, so you can't ash that. That's what I mean. So the effect. Well, I mean, yeah, like or like, can you do it in main? Like like you know what I mean? Like 哪怕TCG翻译就是错，他们不会管你的。他不是管我的意思，就是说，因为有可能他需要有，就有些东西可能说这张卡，就比如说我在玩 TCG 的这个效果，但是我在世界赛，对吧？然后有可能是说 TCG 这个效果的话，我这个卡是不能被挥的。但是如果是按照 OCG 的效果的话，它是能被挥的，就有可能有这种类似的情况。Yeah, that's what I mean. So that's why it's a
good. But like if you go like summon monster set 4 mage power, that monster has like 2,500 extra attacks.
4,900.
The power scale of how big a monster could get would just be absurd.
Most of the new trap cards were either niche or subpar, but one was good enough to join the other.
What did I walk
like
into?
Order.
I was curious in roles if there's a card that has different effect. Are they using the TCG or the OCG effect?
Mirror Force. Torrential Tribute was like a combination of Trap Hole and Dark Hole, and because of its reactive nature, one could argue that it was even better than Dark Hole was.
But Torrential is probably the most impactful card long-term from this set.
Torrential Tribute,
everything gets destroyed.
A board wipe that you could flip on your opponent's turn. They didn't even have to attack. It could just be on summon.
People are smart about it. They use their Sangans to toggle it themselves.
People had to learn how to play around that card. Again, it kind of created the heavy storm dynamic where you had to be more conservative in thinking and respect your opponent's back.
I go all in.
Like,
I don't fucking care.
If they have Torrential, I might just lose the game. So a lot of the times you might see older Yu-Gi-Oh players
I'm gonna
not
set everything
playing into
on
it
my
by
field.
Overcommitting to their board and summoning a second monster. They might just poke with like whatever monster they have on the field because if they have the possibility of not running into Torrential,
明年报名世界赛，我没有资格报名
again,
世界
it
赛，
just
好吧
taught players to be very conservative.
Bruh, somebody said that if I go to roles, that I'll be able to know. I am not qualified for words. Where's paper, bruh? No. Some kind of different resolution. Yes, I know. My question is, what happens if that happens at roles?
Jar of Greed and Magic Cylinder saw occasional play as well, but neither came close to offering the power of Torrential Tribute. What really pushed this month over the edge was the
look at all the empty
simultaneous
space.
release of
Get me
Starter Deck
good.
Joey and Starter
What
Deck
empty
Pegasus
space?
on March 30th. Though many of the best cards in both decks were just reprints from older sets, they each included one of the best cards in the game.
Scapegoat! Batter Duster might be loved.
Scapegoat and Graceful Charity were both better than any of the Magic cards in Labyrinth of Nightmare. While there was some debate about whether Scapegoat belonged in the main deck or the side deck, and some people opted not to play it at all, it certainly had a noteworthy metagame presence, probably enough to warrant being called
It depends on the judge, also hosting country. So you're telling me last year when it was it last year when it was in Seattle, we're going to do a TCG effect. If it's in JP like next year, it's going to be OCG effect. What go? No,
It
I'm not.
couldn't
No, I'm
really
not the
be
sheep.
used for anything, at least not yet. This kind of defensive power was almost unprecedented. Unlike Swords of Revealing Light, this card didn't need to be activated preemptively and could be used to intercept
Probably,
incoming attacks.
bruh. They're
Not
just
to
making
mention,
shit up.
It also wasn't vulnerable
It's like,
to
I'm the
magic
hosting
and trap
country,
card
so you gotta
destruction.
suck it up
All
and
that
use my
said,
effect.
As you may expect, Graceful
Let me
Charity
ask
was
Ray.
definitely the better card here. You would have been hard pressed to find anyone who wasn't.
Yeah, we need first hand washed up world champions. No, but he was doing. Well, I mean, he probably know, even though he was an MD. MD is just OCG effect. It's shiny button. There's no confusion. It's not paper.
it in their main deck, and it isn't very hard to see why.
Graceful Charity. This should have been banned before. It was legal, but
You draw 3 and you discard 2.
It more or less did the same thing as Pot of Greed, and while it wasn't necessarily better,
Milling
it
to
also
grave?
wasn't necessarily worse. It could be either or depending on the situation, and the
I like
discard
Pot of
cost,
Greed.
while usually a drawback, allowed players to do a lot of things that Pot of Greed didn't.
let's say you drew like Monster Reborn off Graceful Charity, but then you could like discard the Jinzo in your hand and Monster Reborn the Jinzo. Like, that's so powerful. And just for simplified Yu-Gi-Oh back then, it was just taking the game to a completely another level.
5,500
And as if these cards
Jinzo.
hadn't already done enough for the game, just a little over a week later, Stairway to the Destined Duel shook things up again by introducing two more staples to the card pool.
What?
Each copy of the game included a promotional pack, and all of
Promotional
these packs
pack?
contained the same 3 cards.
What'll we
One
get?
of them was nothing more than a collectible
Aw.
for fans of the anime, but the other 2 seemed like they were tailor-made for
What? That's where Feather Duster came from? In TCG? Ray was 2019 paper rolls. I see.
competitive play. Harpy's Feather Duster more or less speaks for itself. This was
Each
the
format
Raigeki
has
that had
different rolling with Justice Session. I know. But rolls is one format. It's not TCG and OC. I mean, it's not TCG format or OCG format. That's what I'm asking.
Storm
Dave
Star
also.
Cole and was just
I
as
mean, the
popular
stake is
as you
also,
would
like,
expect. Sinister
used,
Serpent,
no?
on the other hand, was powerful in a way that wasn't quite as obvious. At first glance, it doesn't really appear to do anything, but as it turns out, there were actually a lot of very easy and useful ways to take advantage of its effect.
You essentially created infinite discard fodder for you. So, just as an example, if you did decide to play cards like, let's say, Magic Jammer, or just any good discard card, Graceful Charity would probably be a better example here. It's a card that you choose to play in your deck that you know technically doesn't do anything, but if you ever have it in tandem with these other cards that require you to discard, whether for cost or as part of the effect, you aren't losing any card advantage as a result of that. And the funny thing is, in a very simplified game state, you could effectively just keep
Generally,
setting Sinister
OCG rolling.
Serpent over and over
Let's fucking go!
again, so you never technically lose a monster while you're drawing cards off the top of your
Well,
deck
yeah,
each turn.
because TCG is poo-poo incorrect translated.
So it was this really weird card, but it actually just made a tremendous impact on the game.
As usual, most of the best new cards made their way onto the limited list. Between the 2 updates released in April and May, 9 total changes were made. Graceful Charity was the only semi-limited card, while Magic Cylinder, Sinister Serpent, Harpy's Feather Duster, and the 2 new equip spells were
They also gave you a Feather Duster or like another card if you ordered the Boomer collection that they released. What was that thing called? If you buy the Steam one or something, right? I forgot the
all
name.
limited. Sengen and Heavy Storm made their way to the limited section as well. In Sengen's case, because he, like Witch of the Black Forest, continued to get better every time new monsters were released.
They just they power crept themselves as more good stuff came out.
And in Heavy Storm's case, because Harpy's Feather Duster did the same thing it did. By this point, it was pretty clear that Yu-Gi-Oh! Was a much different game than it had been a year
It
prior,
was?
but one thing hadn't
I thought we
changed,
were
and
still in
that was that
2002?
Beatdown was still the best deck around. Despite how many challengers had attempted
What?
to
No,
take
I
its
don't know
place,
anything.
This was
What are you
still
talking
the most
about?
popular and
I don't know
most
anything.
powerful deck in the game,
What are we-
just
what
like
I-
it
what
had
am I
been back
knowing?
in May of 2002. The deck was a
2002
sort of
May,
ship of
okay.
Theseus, though. It's hard to say whether or not it was the same deck it used to be, since pretty much all of the original pieces had been swapped out for new ones. At this point, the deck was certainly more control-focused, especially when compared to truly dedicated versions of the beatdown strategy, but it still aimed to do the same thing, overwhelm the opponent with powerful monsters while
This is just Sky Striker. This is like 5 monster, 10 monster, 11 monster. Everything else like 90% of spell cards, and then like 5 trap cards.
using
There's
other
more
tools like
trap. Okay,
magic
not more
cards,
trap
trap
than
cards,
monsters,
and
but
effect
I mean they
monsters
don't
to
run
control
everything
the
though.
game. It's also worth pointing out that even with Mechanical Chaser out of the picture, there were still plenty of expensive staple cards that a lot of players either couldn't or didn't feel like paying for. This
Play
obviously
to win,
affected deck
baby.
building, since it forced people to find
That's your
alternatives to
childhood
anything they
deck,
didn't
bro.
have.
Oh, look at him!
This obviously
$61. That's so cheap in TCG. 128. Morphing jar. 33 Imperial Order. Seems like this is cheaper than current Yu-Gi-Oh, but also inflation though. Yeah, Spell Trapper is better. Well, I mean, Spell is better though.
Affected deck building since it
Zenzo
forced
still
people
plays
to
today?
find alternatives to anything
Not
they didn't
really.
have,
What,
which allowed
and
a lot of cards
Edison?
to continue seeing play that otherwise wouldn't have. Speaking purely in terms of
Yeah,
optimization, though,
不加
there
上
really was no reason to play most of the stuff that had defined the early game, and surprisingly, the same was soon to be true of the beatdown deck itself. One of the deck's
这
oldest
02年
rivals,
的
Hand Control, was
物价
about to be powered up substantially by the
03年
release
02
of
年
Legacy of Darkness in June and Pharaonic Guardian in July. These two sets changed the game in plenty of ways, and one of the most notable ways they did is by giving Hand Control a bunch of new tools.
I summon the spirit of
Yana! Not the Donozal. Not the Reaper.
Legacy of Darkness had Yatagarasu and Drop-Off, and Pharaonic Guardian had Spirit Reaper and Donzalug. What was perhaps the most surprising about these four cards is just how good they actually wound up being. None of them were all too different from White Magical Hat after all, and if that card hadn't pushed Hand Control over the edge, well, it was hard to see why these would. Donzalug in particular was...
So yeah, like Yada was 2003, and then Chaos Emperor Dragon was 2004, right? So it didn't got banned until the Dragon did some shit.
Almost identical, but despite this, he was arguably the most important piece of support the deck received in either set. There were a handful of different reasons for this, but more than anything else, the card owed a lot of its success to Mystic Tomato, which had an
对，人数无
extremely
害，
strong
人数无
presence
害
at the
被龙
time.
给玩进去
Tomato
好
had
吧？
always been fairly popular following its debut in Magic Ruler, but now that Sengen and Witch were both limited, it was seeing
Oh,
an
3
unprecedented
Tomato,
level of
let's go.
representation. The fact that everybody could only play one Witch and one Sengen meant two things. First, that they showed up in the hand a lot less frequently,
15%?
and second, that using one to search for the other was a much bigger commitment now that players had no extra copies to fall back on. Mystic Tomato did a lot to minimize both issues by providing consistent...
Is this a secret? It looks shiny here.
access to both monsters and letting players pick which one they wanted to summon based on what monsters they wanted to search for. Anyone who was already playing Mystic Tomato for this reason didn't have to go out of their way to include Donzalug in their deck since he was also a dark monster with 1500 or less attack. This was one advantage he had over White Magical Hat, the other being his higher attack point score. One of Hat's most glaring weaknesses was the fact that it could be killed by pretty much any non-flip monster. While Donzalug was no powerhouse, Sengen and Witch couldn't kill it, and it could at least trade with an attack position Mystic Tomato. Together, these two things meant that he was safer and more convenient to summon and easier to keep alive than Magical Hat was, which of course also meant that resolving his effect was a lot easier too. All of these things also applied to Spirit Reaper. While this monster couldn't attack over really any meta-relevant monsters, it made up for this by itself being immune to battle destruction. This protection gave the card added utility outside of its role in hand control decks, particularly as a stalling tool, and ironically made it an effective shield against other monsters with discard effects like its own.
Spirit Reaper was also another one that became a very popular card.
Donzalug was really good.
Donzalug was broken.
Even when they weren't actually able to resolve their effects, both monsters, Donzalug in particular, were capable of applying a lot of pressure by simply being on the field. It wasn't uncommon for players to use cards like Raigeki and Mirror Force just to kill one, or to search for Gemini Elf with Witch for the same reason. Conversely, they also made a person's power cards more valuable, not just because they could be used to get rid of either monster, but also because it was easy for both Donzalug and Spirit Reaper to take advantage of big swings in momentum. Following up a Raigeki or Dark Hole activation with an attack from one of these two was an often devastating 1-2 punch that was very difficult to recover from, and there were plenty of other cards floating around the meta landscape that could generate similar openings for them. A lot of this also applied to Yatagarasu, and that's to say that Yata was good for many of the same reasons that these cards were, but it was different in a few ways that were, while subtle, still very important. One of the most unique things about this card was that it didn't have a discard effect, but instead forced whoever it dealt damage to skip their next draw phase. Now, at a glance, this may seem almost identical to the effect of a card like White Magical Hat, since both have the same activation conditions and both leave the opponent with one less card in their hand. The difference becomes apparent when asking the following question: what happens when these monsters attack somebody who doesn't have any cards in their hand?
Emergency balance, let's go.
Due to the nature of their effects, there was actually a universal way to play around most of the hand control monsters already built into the game. Many players, upon seeing a Spirit Reaper or a Donzalug that they didn't have an answer for, would begin setting as many cards as possible from their hand to the field. These monsters, and even cards like Delinquent Duo for example, couldn't force someone to discard cards they didn't have to begin with. From a certain perspective, though, you could say that's exactly what Yatagarasu did. This was the only hand control monster that could actually stop the player it attacked from getting a hold of new resources. Now, under normal circumstances, practically speaking, an attack from Yatagarasu wasn't
Yata
any
didn't
more
do anything
devastating
wrong
than an attack from Zalug, Reaper, or Magical Hat. If any of these monsters attacked the player with 4 cards in their hand, then after their next draw phase, they would still have 4 cards in their hand as opposed to 5. Where things diverge a little bit is what happens when these monsters attack somebody who doesn't have any cards in their hand. In 3 of these 4 cases, the effects won't actually do anything, and the attacked player will have 1 card in hand after their next draw phase. In Yatagarasu's case, however, after the draw phase, the attacked player's hand will still be empty. This player, now completely out of resources, would, under normal circumstances, not be able to do anything to protect themselves from being attacked by Yata on their following turn. And so their draw phase would be skipped again on their next turn, then again on the turn after that, and again on the turn after that, over and over and over until they finally ran out of life.
Okay, but it's actually hard to do that though. Baby Yata, what
Now, these 3 monsters weren't the only.
Yata didn't do shit. Yata didn't do shit. Okay, it was the stupid dragon. And the stupid dragon burns you and you die anyways before you fucking do the tomato and the. I've done this before. Okay, we've done this on what's that thing called? We done it on Idol Pro. Okay, they just die before I chain and do Yata. They just die. Like you did not use the Yata.
Including 2 new level 4 monsters.
And that was I put 3 pot of grease and 3 Yata and 3 tomato, 3 witch, 3 Sengen, so it could be more consistent. Okay?
Had 19.
I've test played this combo.
Both monsters had
Yata did not do anything wrong.
Attached to them, so they weren't quite as practical to use as GenmuArt,
那说还是说
but they were
他
a
啥
lot
都没
easier
干
to
好
get a
吧
hold of. Accessibility aside, Spear Dragon's effect actually made it fairly popular. It was one of the first meta-relevant monsters with a piercing effect, which basically meant that whenever it attacked a defense position
piercing
monster,
effect.
it would still
I activate this card. You still take the damage. What, 5 Ds?
Damage to the person who controlled it. This was a pretty big deal, since its presence in the game made setting low defense monsters like Magician of Faith fairly risky when a player was low on life points. This added a brand new layer of depth to the game, and changed the way a lot of players approached its later stages. Now, despite how good it was, Spear Dragon did have one fatal flaw, that being its Goblin Attack Force-esque drawback, which left it helpless for an entire turn after it declared an attack. Fortunately, unlike Goblin Attack Force, it didn't have to stay in defense position for 2 turns, but that being said, it did still have 0 defense points, so it was really easy to get rid of. While it was in defense position, it was, ironically, actually a perfect attack target for other copies of Spear Dragon, so doing anything with this card when low on life points was pretty risky. There was also another monster with a piercing effect in this set, the level 5 Air Knight Parshath. This card was interesting because it had to be tribute summoned, despite the fact that its attack point score was the same as Spear Dragon's. It didn't have all the other drawbacks, but tribute summoning was a pretty big investment, especially without the protection offered by Jinzo. That said, Parshath was similar to Jinzo in the sense that it made up for its relatively low attack power with the strength of its effect. Anytime someone used it to deal damage to their opponent, they got to draw a free card. It was like a sort of reverse White Magical Hat or Donzalug, except because Parshath dealt piercing damage and had a much higher attack stat, its effect was significantly easier to trigger. Given the current meta landscape and the growing power of hand control, an effect like this was extremely valuable, and ironically, at a time when cards
is it that, but you have the tribute to do this,
ever,
no?
The fact that Parshath needed to be tribute summoned wasn't as relevant as it otherwise would have been. On that note, there was actually another fairly meta-relevant one tribute monster in Legacy of Darkness, and it couldn't be special summoned from the graveyard like Jinzo and Parshath could. Dark Ruler Hades was a level 6 fiend monster that actually had both of them beaten in terms of attack power, and while it was sometimes sometimes a bit less convenient to summon than they were, when it did hit the field, it had the potential to be just as impactful. Any monster with an effect that triggered when that monster was destroyed by battle could be negated by Hades, and at the time, that included the overwhelming majority of meta-relevant effect monsters. Sanguine Witch, Morphing Jar, Cyber Jar, Mystic Tomato, Nimble Momonga, even Man-Eater Bug, all of these cards essentially got reduced to normal monsters if they were destroyed by Hades. This was one of the most oppressive effects in the entire game, not on the same level as Imperial Order or Jinzo, but still enough to win games almost by itself. The fact that it couldn't be recovered if something happened to it did hurt its viability, and unlike both Parshath and Jinzo, it couldn't be searched by Witch or Sanguine, but it was still popular enough to have a known meta
Okay,
presence.
it
In
was?
terms of sheer raw attack power, Hades was one of the most powerful one-tribute monsters in the entire game, second only to Summon Skull.
Yeah, it had 50 more
okay.
attack points than Jinzo, first of all. That's massively important.
But he wasn't
What's
the most
all with
powerful
these
monster introduced
plus
in
50
Legacy of
attack?
Darkness. There was another newcomer in this set, even more powerful than Blue Eyes White
今年合计
Dragon,
查多
but
哪个
unlike
啊？这个啊
expectations,
Dark Ruler Hades?
there
Wait,
was
there's a
another-
sensor card
Very
here?
important.
but he wasn't
There's a
the most
sensor
powerful
TG card here? Wait, which
enough to
one?
have a known
什么东西？这个啊？这个地方吗？带着两个球。这个。哦，它不是两个球。Wait, let me search. What does the OCG card look like? Plus 50, yes. Plus 1 matters. Okay, let me see. I want OCG. Oh, it's like just the horns. It's like the red horns. Yeah, they're like, that's like too demonic. Got like change it to boss. Yeah, he has horns, red horns.
meta presence. In terms of
Kinda-
sheer
kinda.
raw attack power, Hades was one of the most powerful one-tribute monsters in the entire game, second only to Summon Skull.
Yeah, it had 50 more attack points than Jinzo, first of all. That's massively important.
But he wasn't the most powerful monster introduced in Legacy of Darkness. There was another newcomer in this set, even more powerful than Blue Eyes White Dragon, but unlike expectations would suggest, it didn't need 2 tributes to be summoned, and actually didn't need to be tribute summoned at all.
Appear in a lot of other cards. In other cards, do they have horns or they also censored it? They censored it,
As
no?
powerful as he was, Hades was totally eclipsed by
Needle.
Injection Fairy Lily. This card took
They
the
had to
design
change R.
philosophy
Okay,
of
yeah,
cards
yeah.
like
Well, yeah,
Dark
they
Elf and
have to.
Goblin Attack Force
They're
to a
not gonna
brand
just
new
like
extreme,
leave the
allowing
other
players to
ones
trade 2,000
horns
life
there.
points for a temporary 3,000 attack point.
Nowadays, 1,600 attack, that's below 900% better than 2,500 attack. Well, I mean, if it's a vanilla mystic that doesn't do anything, then we don't care.
Boost during either player's turn. This made her significantly more powerful than any and all
I have this
meta-relevant
card.
monsters at the time,
I
and she
think.
was a lot easier to summon
first
than
ed
any
one?
monsters that could come close to competing with her.
It's not
thanks to her
that
low level and
expensive,
base
actually, I
stats.
think.
Yeah, it
I
pretty
think
much
it's
outclasses
close to 100
almost
maybe.
everything in terms of like attack points. It is a bit high risk because you are paying 2,000 life points to activate the effect. Fairy Lily, I also believe, was limited a bit later on as well, so that just goes to show the power that that card has. Because while I would say Exiled Force is better because it has to kill the monster in battle, right? So if it had some immunity to being destroyed by battle, or just had some other threat, like let's say it was like a flip effect monster or something like that, Injection Fairy Lily is like a little bit weaker in that regard. But like, let's say you had out a Jinzo, let's say there's so many different cards that are just like big, and sometimes you just need something bigger to get over it.
I only
Injection
know
Fairy
these
Lily
cards
was
from
that
Goat.
go-to card
What do you
for that.
mean?
Aside
Oh,
from
go
the
for it?
obviously steep life point cost needed to attack and defend with her, this card's only real weakness was the fact that she was Earth attribute, which meant that Mystic Tomato couldn't summon her from the deck. She could be summoned by Giant Rat, but this required the person playing her to actually play Giant Rat in their deck. Many people opted not to, since she was already searchable by both Witch and Sanguine, and the monsters that Giant
The
Rat
Red
could summon
Cross?
from the deck aside from her usually
Yeah.
weren't worth the deck space they took up. They weren't all terrible though. Included in this pool of monsters was Nimble Momonga, as well as another newcomer from Legacy of Darkness named Exiled Force. This card could tribute itself to destroy any monster on the field, so in essence it was like a walking version of cards like Fissure and Tribute to the Doomed. It was pretty similar to Injection Fairy Lily in the sense that it was a fairly low commitment way to remove monsters from the board when other monsters couldn't do the job. Since they were both searchable by Sengen and Witch, getting a hold of them was also quite a bit easier than getting a hold of magic cards with removal effects like Raigeki, Dark Hole, and Fissure. Genzo and Imperial Order could also shut down cards like these and other forms of removal like Torrential Tribute and Mirror Force, so there were a lot of in-game situations that only these two could deal with. Of the two, Exiled Force was particularly reliable because it didn't have to attack to remove monsters from the field, so cards like Mirror Force and even Magic Cylinder couldn't stop it. Really, the only way to prevent an effect like this from going through was with a card like Solemn Judgment, which, while more popular now than it was when it released, was still far from seeing widespread competitive play. As for
It was
other
only, what,
utility
$33?
monsters introduced in both sets, there were a handful, but they all saw varying levels of success. Twin-headed Behemoth could revive itself at the end of the turn it was destroyed. Sasuke Samurai could destroy any defense position monster regardless of how many defense points that monster had and without flipping that monster face up if it was set face down. Lesser Fiend would remove monsters from the game entirely when it destroyed them by battle instead of just sending them to the graveyard. And Guardian Sphinx, well, this card was like a one-sided Cyberjar that only got rid of the other player's monsters and instead of destroying them, returned them to the hand. Unlike most other flip monsters though, Guardian Sphinx's effect wouldn't activate if it was attacked and flipped face up, rather it needed to be flip summoned, which coupled with the fact that it needed to be tribute summoned made it a bit less consistent than cards like
five
Cyberjar.
star.
It was still very powerful though, especially because the effect could be used more than once, but it wasn't nearly as popular as Cyberjar had been and still was. Speaking of Cyberjar though, there was actually another brand new jar monster introduced in Legacy of Darkness, and it was without a doubt the most annoying one yet.
Bruh! Isn't that, wait, these are the Yugi Boomer BGMs though.
Fiberjar,
Yeah,
if we're talking
Fiberjar.
about poorly designed cards,
That was a big card. You got the reset button.
definitely one of the biggest nightmares ever. Let's just
I was at like one of the, like, I think it was like at AX, they were like, you could like play speed duel, and if you win, I think you get like a gotcha or something. I'm pretty sure they had Cyberjar in the demonstration deck or like the deck that you could play or something.
let's
Fiberjar,
just be
yes.
thankful that Noblemen of Crossout existed, and Exiled Force by extension.
Like the other jar monsters, Fiberjar's flip effect was explosive.
Yeah, no, because I remember like I was gonna win. I was almost gonna win. And then there was a card that was like flipped down. And then I was gonna attack, and then he was like, "Oh, like I might have this." I'm like, "Fuck that, you don't have that shit," and I won. And then no, it was funny because like I think I had some other stuff, and I was gonna attack, and then I was like, "Oh, I have enough attack," but then he was trying to mess with me, and then he was like, "Oh wait, oh it's not enough," and I'm like, "Wait a second, no, I'm enough. You die." Yeah, I'm like, "Fuck that shit, no, you don't have that shit, no, I'm gonna." Yeah, he did not have it. I think it was actually, I forgot. I think they hired, I think he was one of the OG, like he wasn't Billy, but I forgot his name, but I think he was somebody that was like actually like a champ, like ex-champ or something. I don't remember, but I was like, okay, yeah, I'm not gonna.
It could and often would.
Yeah, he's like, what if I
completely
have
change
this?
the
I'm like,
tempo
you
and
do
flow
not
of the
have that,
game if
no.
it resolved. Everything in the game that wasn't removed from play.
Like, I'm not
got
gonna waste a
shuffled into
turn.
the deck
Like,
by
if you
just
have
throwing
it,
cards in the
then,
hand,
well-
cards on the field and cards in either graveyard. At a time when resource management, more specifically controlling the number of cards.
Playing deck with 2 black will change a hard pot agree, get
that.
dies.
Was particularly annoying. because
3
it
pot
allowed
agrees or 1
players
pot
who
agree?
either were losing or had essentially already lost the game to completely equalize the playing field with just one card.
You're basically playing game 2.
Of course, Fiberjar also shuffled itself back into the deck with this effect, meaning that it could be used again in the same game and then again after that.
When you read it, it's like, oh, this is kind of cool. It, like, restarts the game, and then you realize that that means the game could essentially go on, like, to infinity, and it kind of just creates all these, like, weird situations, and...
Wasn't this
I'm
limited
just happy
then?
that card's
No?
on the ban list.
Oh, got banned.
Prominence of hand control cards, even outside of dedicated hand-controlled decks.
Did it got
ensured that
immediate
this
ban
card
or did
became a
it got
staple
limited
almost
first?
immediately after its release. It was easy to use, and it was an extremely effective comeback tool, arguably more so than both Morphing Jar and Cyberjar. Plus, it was also searchable by both Witch and Sengen, who, as mentioned earlier, could be summoned from the deck by Mystic Tomato. So in the event that things did start
不是
to
我
go
说他
south,
当
getting
时
a hold
被
of
你
this
禁
thing
掉之前
usually
有没有
wasn't
被限
particularly
制啊？
difficult.
是
There
不
was
是限一
also
还
a
是限额？
surprising lack of reliable ways to counter it at the time. Exiled Force and Sasuke Samurai were the only searchable ways to destroy Fiber Jar without allowing its effect to resolve. And this likely contributed to the fact that, along with Fiber Jar and Yatagarasu, Exiled Force was one of the most popular cards introduced in either Legacy of Darkness or Pharaonic Guardian. Most of, as a matter of fact, the overwhelming majority of staples added in both sets were monsters, but there were a handful of new magic and trap cards that managed to shake things up a little bit. Out of nearly 100 new magic and trap cards from Legacy of Darkness and Pharaonic Guardian, these three saw the most immediate tournament success by a wide margin. Book of Moon was the least popular card here, but it was still played by a large portion of the player base due to its immense flexibility. It lacked the obvious power and explosiveness of cards like Raigeki and Pot of Greed, but as a quick play magic card that could be used on monsters from either side of the field, there was a stunning amount of different ways that this card could be used. Ring of Destruction was the standout card here. It was the staple of both sets. Anyone who had the card played it.
You either had this card or you didn't. If you had it, then you would win. If you don't have this card, unfortunately, you're always at the mercy of someone's Ring of Destruction. It has such quick timing, you can activate it whenever you want, and if you're about to lose, you can force a draw.
Its purpose was pretty
Force
simple. It was
a
meant to
draw.
remove any monsters from the field
Double
and
loss,
defeat
double
an
loss,
endgame
poo-poo.
together with the burn damage it inflicted. This burn effect was actually extremely relevant because the card could destroy monsters from either side of the field. If the situation called for it, it could essentially enable any monster to attack twice by destroying them after they dealt damage to another player's life points. This wasn't some sort of niche interaction either. This combo was very practical and very deadly, and was used to end games all the time. Mirage of
More burn
Nightmare
cards,
was the
let's
weirdest
go.
card here, and overall one of the weirdest cards
Stun
in
and
the
burn,
game
let's
at the time of
go.
its release. Mirage let whoever activated it draw up to 4 cards, but during their opponent's standby phase, and depending on how many cards they already had in their hand. There was a catch though, and it was that during their own standby phase, anyone who drew cards this
We
way
don't care
had to
that though,
randomly
no?
discard
Do we
the
care
same
about that?
number of cards. Unlike with Graceful Charity,
Yeah,
it was pretty
强行-
difficult to
强行-
benefit from
强行
this
double
discard
loss嘛。
effect because the player using it had no influence over what cards were being sent to the graveyard.
Sending those resources to the graveyard, your only payout for them is to revive them through Monster Reborn Premature or Call the Haunted. So the interesting thing to note with that is, once those resources are gone at this point, there's no payoff to getting rid of them.
While getting rid of a Jinzo or a Sinister Serpent was nice, it was generally better to avoid having to discard cards altogether with this effect, because of, again, the lack of control the player had over what they discarded. The card saw tournament success in spite of this for 2 reasons.
Oh,
First of
randomly,
all, the
yeah,
ability
yeah.
to draw 4 cards at the
Okay,
same
then, yeah,
time
I don't
was
think that's a good
excessively
thing then.
powerful, especially at a time when cards with hand destruction effects were all over the place. Second of all, there was actually a way to bypass this discard effect, and that was by destroying the card before it could resolve properly. Since Mirage was a continuous magic card, it had to stay on the field for anything it wanted to happen to actually happen. So just about everyone who played it also took to running 2 or more often 3 copies of Mystical Space Typhoon which they could use to destroy it, something that wasn't particularly common before this point. Since Typhoon was quick play, it could be used during the draw phase or the standby phase to destroy Mirage before it could force the player to discard anything. Mystical Space Typhoon had plenty of other applications outside of
That's
this
legal in
specific interaction
Genesis?
as well, so the people who played this combo
Well, everything is
usually didn't feel
legal.
like they were
It's just
losing
like it might
anything
have
by playing
points.
these
Pot of
additional
Greed is
copies of
also
the card.
legal,
If
no?
Imperial Order was set beforehand, it could also be used to negate Mirage's discard effect during the standby phase. So, especially when considering all of the
这
other
卡
cards
吃
with
死我鸟
draw
丢上
effects in
去。
the game, and the fact
Oh yeah,
that
if it gets
Mirage
drill,
allowed
you,
the player to
you
draw up
still
to
get
4
the...
at once. It was
if
pretty
you
standard
have
to
this
see it
now.
together with one of the cards that could stop its discard effect. Both sets made a handful of other notable additions to the game, like Pharaonic Guardian's Gravekeepers and Legacy of Darkness's Warrior-type support, which was the foundation for something that would eventually go on to become known as the Warrior-type Toolbox. But for now, decks built to focus on concepts like these took a backseat to beatdown and hand destruction decks, which were, at the time, without question, the 2 most powerful and most successful decks in the game. As was standard by this point, each set's release brought with it an update to the limited.
Kind of bad card
running
now,
July
yeah, I
for
know. I mean,
Legacy
a lot of cards are
Darkness and
bad
one in
now.
August for Pharaonic Guardian. Together,
cards that
these
are good
updates
are
made a hefty
banned.
number of changes, and
Or
between
limited,
them,
or
many of the new
semi-limited.
staples ended up in the limited section. Graceful Charity was also limited in August, which was a pretty big but not necessarily unexpected change, since nearly every successful tournament deck had included 2 copies of Charity for as long as they'd been allowed to. The July update also semi-limited 4 new cards from Legacy of Darkness, and the August update took limited removal and backup soldier off the list entirely, but these were comparatively minor changes. Most players agreed that the limits specifically were pretty significant, which was especially important because these changes were going to be enforced at an upcoming tournament that was, well, it's difficult to properly convey the magnitude of something like this, especially compared to the extent of what the majority of Yu-Gi-Oh players had experienced by now.
All the casual people.
At locals. This upcoming tournament was
the
more
Yugas?
high profile than that.
Oh wait, this was the. Well, yeah, this is before the YCS, right? I forgot the name. Look at the pixel. This is 160.
Announced on June 30th of 2003, the World Championship was an invitational tournament
2003, okay, we still
2003. The participants were all either national champions or top-ranking players on the game's official leaderboard, which kept track of player scores based on their performance at smaller tournaments. All 18 of these players had already proven that they were among the best in the world, so it goes without saying that this was, up to this point, the pinnacle of competitive Yu-Gi-Oh! Altogether, the deck lists submitted by the players paint a clear picture of the contemporary metagame. Control and Beatdown were the decks to look out for, and were the only decks represented at the World Championship. This was the perfect opportunity for Hand Control and those who believed in it to prove what it was really capable of by putting itself to a test against the deck that had defined the game for the past year and a half.
They're just playing one copy of each.
Players were successful in doing this would be an understatement. Almost all of the Beatdown players at the tournament
were
Beatdown. And those that did make it to round 2 were playing Beatdown Control hybrids. None of these players would go on to win a single match during the tournament's top 8, leaving Control as the only deck represented from the semifinals onward. There was no room left for doubt at this point. Beatdown had been completely obliterated and Hand Control had taken its place as the new best deck in the game.
那当然，这都20多年前的卡，这是03年的，你在说吗？20多年以前的。
Two of the top 4 players had built notably aggressive versions of the Hand Control deck.
Psyduck being 15 different
ones. Played 2 copies
what
of
do you
Don
mean?
Zalug and 3 copies of Drop Off, while Mike Rosenberg from the
Everybody
United
played
States
Yada.
played 3 copies of Spirit Reaper and 2 copies of Drop Off. Both of these players were paired against each other during the semifinals, and in a written report of the event submitted to Pojo.com, Rosenberg explains that Lung was able to secure a clean 2-0 victory.
If I recall, it was pretty.
It's just 15. Yeah, it's one of each.
I don't think I had a very good matchup against him, honestly. He was just a better player. I felt like I was pretty fortunate to get through as many single elimination matches as I did, and I like it's really hard for me to recall what the details were. I do not recall having a close match against him.
After the semifinals, Rosenberg would play against Huaitao Soon, also from the United States, to determine who would come in 3rd place. The match that would determine the champion was between Yuin Lung and Shigeki Kitamura from Japan. The first 2 games were decided by Ring of Destruction. In both cases, it allowed the person playing to push for immense damage all at once with just a single monster. Kitamura won the first game, and Lung won the second, though something worth mentioning about Game 2 is that it was extremely long because Cyberjar's effect resolved 4 times throughout it.
I just recall the 2 casters who were doing an announcement for those who were like watching from the big screen in that tournament venue. You could hear them incrementally getting more tired as they talk about a Fiberjar flipping and basically resetting both of what these decks are trying to do. They were both hand control.
As the last 2 had been, Game 3 was extremely intense, but was ultimately decided by a late-game Heavy Storm played by Lung. This allowed him to safely attack for game.
Heavy Storm, let's fucking go!
And the title of World Champion. Mike Rosenberg, meanwhile, secured a 3rd place finish by winning his match against Huaitao Soon, meaning that both of these highly aggressive builds of the Hand Control
Look at the
deck were
Yadas!
completely undefeated
Karibo and Psyduck?
aside from their lone run-in with each other. Something Rosenberg's deck lacked in comparison to Lung's, however, was the consistency provided by playing Mystic Tomato. Lung and Kitamura both played 3 copies of the card, and they were the only players at the World Championship who did.
God, I gotta pee. Stop doing the force the Cyberjar. I gotta pee here.
Provided by which
they play Game 7 in 3 games.
Mystic Tomato, and to be more
I gotta
specific,
pee here.
2 or 3 copies of the card, significantly more popular going forward. Something else that played a role in Yuin Lung's victory, though, was his side deck, which was more well-tuned to the competition than anyone else's in the room.
It didn't help me that, like, my side deck was also, I mean, frankly speaking, it's kind of a joke. When you look at those cards, I wasn't utilizing it nearly as much since I was pretty all in on the hand destruction strategy, and he just knew how to utilize a side deck when I really didn't. So that was the biggest challenge. I was winning really heavily on the back of just the hand control strategy being so good. And a lot of competitors, even in the SoCal scene, like, it was an era where you didn't have a lot of information unless you had a leg up with stuff like the OCG, and you were learning from metas that had already kind of developed. And so, like, it's really just that main strategy carried a lot to the point that you didn't need to rely on
TCG
side
gotta
decking
look at
skills,
magazine
and
for
he
info.
absolutely
In
had a side deck.
2003.
Lung's side deck was notably anti-hand control, which may speak to his experience as a player of the Yu-Gi-Oh! Official card game, or OCG, the version of the game originally released in Japan and other parts of Asia before it was localized in the rest of the world. For context, the cards from Legacy of Darkness and Pharaonic Guardian had all been playable in these regions since May of 2002, meaning that the players from these regions had already seen the effects that these cards had on the metagame a long time before the World Championship. Seeing as he was now the World Champion and also had an extra year's worth of insight and experience, many players opted to copy his deck entirely, side deck and all, given the fact that it was obviously very powerful. Even aside from players building replicas of Lung's deck, hand control saw a notable spike in popularity after the World Championship.
Remember when Maxi...
ultra and secret rare cards
yeah,
like
Maxi Droll is all TC. There's like a lot of cards that are like...
plenty of play at the local tournament level. For once, though, it wasn't
they're
because
like
it was the best deck
they're originally TCG
continued
exclusive cards.
Plenty of play at the local tournament level. For once, though, it wasn't because it was the best deck in the game, but because it was the easiest to play and the cheapest to build. As Robert Smith wrote during his official coverage of the 2003 World Championship, the emergence of this deck hails a new age in Yu-Gi-Oh! As the best monster in your deck isn't always the one with the highest attack value. This certainly seemed to be the case, as hand control's total dominance was unquestionable at this
Did you know
point.
disgusting orange? Yeah. I know.
When the next core booster set came out.
I remember there was a tweet and then they had like 8 cards or 10 cards. They're like, these are all
Magician's
TCGs.
Force was released exactly 2 months after the date of the World Championship, and just over a month after the start of the 4th season of competitive play. One thing that's noteworthy about it is that it was the first set to use the term spell card instead of magic card. This was due to legal reasons that aren't relevant to the competitive history of the game, but it is important since from here on out we'll be referring to these as spell cards. Funnily enough, none of the new spell cards were really that good anyway. All of the worthwhile cards in the set were monsters, and many of them were ironically spellcaster type. First of all, the set featured 2 more level 4 monsters with 1900 attack, the ultra rare Luster Dragon and the super rare Skilled Dark Magician. Since they were both lower rarity, they weren't nearly as cost prohibitive as Gemini Elf, and neither of them had any stipulations the way that Thunder Nyan Nyan and Spear Dragon did.
Nyan
The
Nyan?
only thing that kept them from truly replacing Gemini Elf was the fact that they both had more than 1500 defense points, meaning Witch of the Black Forest couldn't grab them from
You
the
dropped
deck.
out
There was
TCG
another
with
level
this
4
set? What's wrong with
1900
this set?
monster in the set that didn't have this issue though, a card that was, for multiple reasons actually, measurably better than Gemini Elf.
Let's go!
I guess in
Rip
Magician's
magic
Force,
cards.
there's actually a lot of cards in here that were really, really good. This is when like 1900
Tsugeki
became
Goki.
standard. I guess everyone can go Super Saiyan 2 now.
Breaker the Magical Warrior was, like Kaiku, a monster with both a high attack stat and a powerful effect. Unlike Kaiku, however, he can actually go
开比加小人，对啊。
head-to-head
TCG, like Maxi living in TCG or TCG master player is like, they have a stroke every time Maxi doesn't get banned. They're like, dying! Look at how many people are playing it. This is fucking dying.
While Breaker technically only had 1600 attack points, whenever he was normal summoned, he received a spell counter that gave him an extra 300.
The power slowly kind of climbed up, and see, Breaker the Magical Warrior was basically a 1900 basic with a decent effect.
A player who can
Maxi's not here yet. Just see how many
for the ability to destroy any
Maxi
color
is
trap card
like
on the field,
after
regardless of whether it
2010,
was
no?
face up or not.
Breaker found homes in almost everything.
All right, so we're gonna start with my favorite card of all time, Breaker the Magical Warrior. So why this card was so powerful was because Breaker was essentially a mystical space typhoon on a body, and what's even better is that if you didn't need
Close
the
end
mystical
of
space
5Ds, yeah.
typhoon
Yeah, okay,
effective
2011,
Breaker,
yeah, that's like,
he
we
was
are not there
the
yet.
strongest, normal summon in the entire game because he would be 1900 attack, and that only lost to like very specific things or removal. Breaker is, in my head, I think one of the few cards that actually like has its effect named after him. People would summon Breaker and they would say break the back row. I think that just kind of goes as a testament to just how
they do
just the legacy and the impact that that card really had in the game.
Breaker couldn't hog the spotlight all to himself though, because there was another level 4 effect monster in this set that caught people's attention almost immediately. It didn't have 1900
这个到
points, but what it
05年
could do
06
when it hit the field
05
made
年
this practically a non-issue.
Oh, this set also had fucking Trident infecting virus. The King.
The King? Harry the Collector.
Tribe
Oh
Infecting
yes,
Virus
yes,
had all
this
the
card.
makings of a
Yes, I
staple
played this
monster.
card.
It was good for all the reasons that Exiled Force was good, but was better in a
Yeah,
handful
they
of
play
ways
this
due
in
to
the
multiple
Chaos
advantages. It
Chaos
had more attack
Dragon
points,
deck,
could
no?
destroy more monsters at once, and
Yeah,
it
this
didn't
card,
leave the
no?
field when it used its effect. It also wasn't once per turn.
And you can tribe your opponent as much as you want as long as you have cards in your hand.
Unsurprisingly, Tribe was one of the most popular cards in the set, and immediately became a metagame staple alongside Breaker. When the ban list was updated in November, these were the only 2 cards added, and both of them were limited. Curiously though, this update to the limited list didn't even acknowledge another new card from Magician's Force, the card that was arguably the most powerful card in the set, and definitely the most problematic. A level 1 spellcaster monster named Magical Scientist.
Magical Scientist is like a nightmare fuel for me. I think this is like the first mistake in the game.
This card allows
I thought the
players to
first
special
mistake was
summon any
Fiber
level 6
Jar?
or lower fusion monster in the game by simply paying 1,000 life points. At
No, the
glance,
first
its
mistake
effect
was
may not
Pot of
seem
Greed.
all that strong because the monster it summoned couldn't attack directly and was
Oh
required.
hell no!
Well, the thing is, it's not once per turn.
Oh my god, a turtle!
It introduced the notion of first turn killer.
FTK, let's
FTKs,
go.
they're just random strategies that appeared every now and
Top
then.
10
This was
FTK.
kind of the first rendition. We were able to just shoot random strategies that appeared every now and then. This was kind of the
Why is Feather Duster banned? Holding just ban cards. Look, Turtle Tomato Sangan is... Yeah, the turtle. The turtle is good.
first rendition where you're able to just shoot your opponent to death with a catapult.
Absolute criminal.
It's like, so what happened? Oh, you lose!
As long as someone could manage to get both Magical Scientist and Catapult Turtle on the field at the same time, it was impossible to stop them from pulling off a combo that would kill their opponent on their first turn. Doing this might sound a bit more difficult than it actually was, because Catapult Turtle is a level 5 monster with no built-in special summoning conditions.
Why is
But
Feather
cards
Duster
like
also
Reasoning, Last
banned?
Will, Monster Reborn, and Gillosaurus could all be used to make sure that one way or another, these two ended up on the field together.
It was too easy to do. Anytime an FTK is introduced into the game, simply just not fun. They're playing solitaire.
What do you mean? It's fun. Reasoning. Monster Reborn is at window.
The only thing that the Magical Scientist
Turtle
deck
got
really
random
lacked
against
at
this,
this
bro.
point was consistency. At the time of Magician's Force's release, the accessible card pool was fairly limited in what it could do to streamline the process of getting a hold of the pieces needed to perform this combo. So while Magical Scientist FTK didn't dethrone hand control,
Get
it almost
three,
immediately
rip.
established its presence in the metagame, and Magical Scientist himself was actually a welcome addition to many hand control decks. He was a searchable way to access pretty much any level 6 or lower fusion monster in the game, which as one would expect was extremely valuable. While the monsters he summoned couldn't attack directly, there was nothing that stopped them from attacking other monsters, and a lot of the fusion monsters he could summon had extremely powerful effects. Thousand Eyes Restrict could get annoying monsters like Jinzo off the field, Dark Balter the Terrible like Hades could deal with flip monsters or monsters like Mystic Tomato, Sanguinar Witch, and Ryu Senshi could protect the player from threatening trap cards like Mirror Force, Magic Cylinder, and Ring of Destruction.
This can
So
summon
the release
Chairlo.
of
Yeah, it
Magician's
can
Force
summon a
didn't
lot of
change
these.
anything as far as hand control being the best deck was
Wait.
concerned. If anything,
That's banned though, right? It's still banned. Like I don't think it's.
it had just made the deck
I think it's in the
stronger with
ban
these three
list,
new
like
staple
Pot of Green,
cards.
no?
It did introduce a
Magical
handful of cards
Scientist?
that saw some experimentation at the local level, but none aside from these three that had immediate, long-lasting effects on the metagame.
It did not have a ton of relevance on the tournament scene, sans like the three that were listed. Which to
Yeah,
be
he's
fair,
locked
one of them did introduce a new deck. Like there were some things that like aged pretty
Jimmy
well.
the
And
Troll,
I think
yeah,
people
he-
toyed
he
around with some
went
cards.
Pot of
Marionette
Green.
was another one of them, I think.
You remember the
like,
puppet
it wasn't
show? Like,
particularly good.
there
There's
is
a
in
lot of
the-
cards
in
that
the- in
people
the
tried to
jail.
build around locally, but they weren't exactly successful. Marionette, I think, was one of the ones that stands out to me
Let's
at
go
the,
back, yeah.
the local tournament scene, just because it could get very large, and it did have some card advantage built into it.
There was still one more booster set scheduled to be released before the end of 2003 at this point, but just like with Magician's Force, it would only debut a small number of cards that immediately impacted competitive play.
Didn't have an impact immediately. Definitely had much more of an impact later.
Dark Crisis was rather a minor set.
With the exception of a few cards, I think notably DD Warrior Lady had the
DD
most
Warrior,
relevance
let's
in
go.
local tournaments at that time.
Released on December 1st of 2003, Dark Crisis was the first core booster set that didn't really have an immediate effect on the tournament scene. The set wasn't terrible, and did feature a handful of decent cards, but only a handful. The standout among them was DD Warrior Lady, a card similar in function to Exiled Force. Whenever this card battled another monster, whether she was the one attacking or the one being attacked, she could remove herself and that other monster from the game entirely. Because there were already other monsters with similar removal effects in the card pool at this point, like Exiled Force and Tribe Infecting Virus, she wasn't totally game-changing, but she was good enough to become a metagame staple and find her way into most deck lists. One advantage that she did have over both of them was that her effect could be triggered during either player's turn, which made getting her off the field without another removal effect pretty annoying.
Yeah, she was very good, very protective.
DD Warrior Lady, what differentiated it so much from Exiled Force is one of the biggest downsides of Warrior Lady is that you have to go to your battle phase, right? But one thing that Warrior Lady did very well that Exiled Force did not is the fact that it could banish or remove from play in old terms whatever it was attacking into.
They
And
haven't
why
had
that was so
anything
unique
where
is
it's like,
because
if you banish, you
could
get affected,
deny your
right?
opponent's Sangan, for instance. There's just so many different cards that you
IOC?
could just banish and ensure they didn't hit the graveyard, so that, for instance, they couldn't resurrect it, it wouldn't get an effect because it didn't hit the graveyard, so on, so on. And also it had a very decent stat line as well. It was 1500 attack, so like it wasn't tiny, so it even just held up pretty well on its own, and it just created another interesting dynamic for the game.
At the time of the set's release, DD Warrior Lady was overwhelmingly its most popular monster, but one of the set's secret rares, Vampire Lord, caught the attention of many
Vampire
players as well. One of
Lord!
the things that made playing him so enticing was
OG
that Pharaonic
Twink.
Guardian included a lot of cards designed to support zombie-type monsters, the most notable of which being Pyramid Turtle. Pyramid Turtle was pretty similar to all of the attribute summoners that made their debut in Magic Ruler, but instead of summoning monsters of a specific attribute with 1500 or less attack from the deck, Pyramid Turtle could summon any zombie-type monster from the deck as long as it had 2000 or less defense points, and this, of course, included Vampire Lord. Playing this engine was, in theory, a pretty easy way to get a monster onto the field capable of dealing with just about anything that didn't need to be tribute summoned. Since he also revived himself whenever he was destroyed by a card effect, permanently dealing with him was actually pretty tough.
So just gotta banish it.
It was one of those cards that was really annoying to deal with unless you had something like, funny enough, DD Warrior Lady, because as long as it kept going to the graveyard by card effect, it didn't have like, it was a 5-star monster and it wasn't like the highest stats.
Well,
but
other
it
way
was
is you just
annoying
NTR
enough
it.
that it warranted
Like
needing
you
some sort of option to deal
Chain
with
of
it, because
Heart.
again, like this is what we were saying earlier when we talked about Pharaonic Guardian. Zombie decks were starting to kind of come up a bit, and people were like looking to Vampire Lord as like a card. Also, Vampire Lord's effect that a lot of people overlook of sending cards from the deck to the graveyard was actually pretty big, because you have to think, when we're back in the old Yu-Gi-Oh days, and like the 10 to 15 spells in their deck are like all really, really good.
I thought it was more
and you
than
force
15
them
spells,
to send a
no?
spell to the graveyard. It's not like instant card advantage, but like it's forcing them to get rid of one of the best cards at their disposal straight out of their deck. So it was not only just a persistent threat, but it was also slowly draining your opponent of resources, and just a very solid card all around.
As good as he was, though, Vampire Lord didn't have the same metagame presence as DD Warrior Lady, and was really only being experimented with at this point.
Vampire Lord people played it when they probably shouldn't have.
Dark Crisis did also feature another level 4 1900 attack monster, one that was easier to get a hold of than both Skilled Dark Magician and Luster Dragon, and, unlike both of them, actually searchable by Witch of the Black Forest. Archfiend Soldier was the first true budget alternative to Gemini Elf that didn't come with any caveats or drawbacks.
This set actually had a lot of decent like commons and easy to access cards. All the best players have 1900 U6. Well, I guess most of the
What's
rest of the
up?
public will also now get access to
Wait, looking at
1900
Yugi Boomer stuff.
The spell and trap cards in Dark Crisis were mostly underwhelming, with a handful of exceptions. Sakuretsu Armor made its debut here, but only saw limited play due to the fact that Mirror Force was obviously superior. Immediately following its release, Butterfly
What?
Dagger Elma was probably the most talked about spell or trap
Oh, this
card in
one,
the
this one.
set. It was
I've
an
seen
equipped
this.
spell, but wasn't actually notable for what it did when it was equipped to a monster. The reason so many people initially had their eyes on this card was because of its potential ability to cause an infinite loop with its second effect. Gearfried the Iron Knight immediately
What?
destroyed any equipped
He ended
spell
straight
that was
because of
equipped
hentai?
to it. And so if a player had him on the field and Elma in hand, they could activate the card infinitely, since it would keep getting destroyed before adding
Oh, this
itself
thing,
back
this
to the
thing, this
hand.
thing, this thing.
Because Magician's Force had introduced a lot of cards that gained spell counters every time a spell card was activated and could activate effects by removing these spell counters, there was a lot of potential for abuse with this infinite loop, particularly through Royal Magical Library, which could allow a player to toss all the cards in their deck with this combo. The card, as well as decks built to abuse it, saw more speculation than actual competitive success, though. While it, like Magical Scientist, opened the door to its own FTK, Magical Scientist decks were simply better than decks built to use this card were. It was just more consistent and required the player to have less specific cards in hand.
Butterfly Dagger Alma.
We snitching? Okay.
Gearfried was very people started to take
Pojo. Okay, they talked
It
about
wasn't
this. So is Pojo like a boomer? It was before what? Before, oh my god, what's that thing before Edo Pro? It's the same era that before that, right? Dates reviewed.
very
Rating 1 to 5 scale, 1 being the worst, 3 average. So what's the rate of this? Date reviewed. Pojo was like a hobby form, very oldage. Okay, oldage.
people started to take notice.
So what's the review of this?
It wasn't anything too major taking off, but people did take note that this
These
is
forms, Pojo.
Speaking
Okay.
of these two decks, Dark Crisis did also include spell reproduction, which made both of them a
Kevin used the poster. We got insight. Oh, okay. I see. Yeah.
decent bit more consistent, but didn't push either of them over the edge.
Yeah, so like it had most of its pieces. Spell reproduction probably moved the needle a couple points. But
Turtle.
like I think most people were pretty set
this
in
thing
their
not
ways.
banned
Like,
yet.
they either played the deck and then they would take in the upgrades, or they wouldn't play the deck because they thought it was cheese. There were some consistency issues with the deck as well. So like especially if you're doing like single elimination tournaments, like you could have a
Single elimination. They did that. I thought it was always BO3 now for
The
TCG.
next update to the ban list in February limited both Butterfly Dagger Elma and Magical Scientist, which reduced the consistency of both decks by a little bit. Vampire Lord was also limited, along with another new card from Dark Crisis named Reflect Bounder that had seen some success after the set's release, but wasn't anywhere near as popular as DD Warrior Lady. This update to the limited list, like Dark Crisis itself, wasn't particularly impactful, and did little to change the way the game was played overall. Tournaments were more or less filled with the same deck lists as before, only these deck lists.
Why is everything in California? Oh, NJ. I see. NJIN.
Now had 1 or 2 DD Warrior Ladies thrown into.
And a old form cannot keep hope from Ethiopia. Yeah. I saw that. Well, I don't know if it's rumored, but yeah, I saw that. From somewhere. I mean, I know the original is from that, but I've seen that. I was not on Pojo.com. Sorry.
Its release on March 1st of 2004 would completely overshadow the release of Dark Crisis, and the cards it was going to add to the game seemed capable of warping the entire meta almost overnight.
There was this crazy set that came out called Invasion of Chaos.
Do we get to Chaos now? Yes. This is what my bird got unethically banned because of this thing here.
Why we have the forbidden list.
The forbidden list.
We may have talked about the graveyard being the resting place of most monsters, but no, now that is just your gas tank.
Among other things, Invasion of Chaos introduced a series of monsters that could be special summoned by removing certain monsters in the graveyard from play. 2 of these monsters in particular were, to put it lightly,
I still can't believe we couldn't pull off the combo. Well, yeah, that's what I mean. Like, we fucking did it, and it's like, oh shit, but you would die because of the burn, and then you like I can't even chain the Black Forest and tomatoes shit. So that's, and then you remember, like, I was playing 3 pot of grease, 3 tomato, 3 witch. Like, I was playing everything at max, right? So
big deal.
The bird did nothing wrong.
Soldier, you have Chaos Emperor Dragon. Both of these monsters have 3,000 attack, and they are special summons. They don't eat up your once per turn normal summons.
You have a 3,000 attack monster that you can special.
不是，我之前特地还玩过这个 combo。这个 combo 就是你地龙上了以后，对方已经死了，你根本就不会，很少情况下你能把就是连锁，然后检索八太无召唤，然后把它给打一下。 所以当年砍不应该砍他的。
But on top of being big
They just they just died to burn. Like you can't even change it. They just die. Like you don't even get Yada. You don't search Yada. They just die there. They die on the spot there when you summon it.
I don't even care what the effect is, dude.
Because his card also on the because like if they have cards set down and shit, they'll like burn. I don't know. Like they just die.
Die out of nowhere.
And then Chaos Emperor Dragon doesn't let people play Yu-Gi-Oh!
It was a power horse, guys.
These weren't just staples the way prior powerful cards had been. As soon as it became legal to play them, they conquered and reshaped the tournament scene. They weren't just slotted into decks the way that most cards were. They were so powerful that most people played them and changed the way they built the rest of their deck just to make sure they could use these two optimally. This gave birth to a brand new deck, of course, which most people simply referred to as Chaos.
Most of the best cards in the game at the time were already light and dark anyway, so you just had these cards that naturally fit into your deck and would just incentivize you to want to play these
Light, dark,
overpowered
dark,
cards.
dark,
Moving
dark,
forward,
dark.
light and dark monsters became significantly more desirable, and while this did breathe life
对啊，
into
出场
some
对面就
monsters
死了呀。
that otherwise probably wouldn't have seen
Hurry,
play,
Mo.
it also made staple cards that just about everyone was already playing better than they were in the first place. So rather than outright replacing many of the decks that were prominent before the release of Invasion of Chaos, the Chaos deck formed by combining these new Chaos monsters with these existing decks. In other words, truly pure Chaos decks were rare. It was more common to see decks like Chaos Beatdown, Chaos Zombie, Chaos
Chaos
Warrior,
Zombie,
so on
but
and
Yada,
so
they're gonna
forth. More than any of
fucking
these,
talk
though,
about
there
my
was one
bird
deck that
now.
synergized with the new Chaos cards particularly well. With the sole
Justice
exception
for
of
Yada.
Yamagarasu, all of the hand control monsters
Yeah,
were
look, it's
either
not even a
light or
dark
dark,
one.
and all of
It's
them
a-
could be
it's a-
found by
it's a
their
wind.
respective recruiter. On top
Also
of that,
not a
and
wing
perhaps
beast.
most importantly,
It's a
Chaos
fiend.
Emperor Dragon could fulfill the deck's win condition by itself. Invasion of Chaos hadn't brought with it the end of hand control, it had just made the deck
如此美丽
stronger.
卡，
Rather
太
than
无知
allow
无知
itself
可
to
惜
be
了。
obsolete by the new Chaos engine, hand control merged with it, in the process creating one of the most dominant decks in the game's history.
Chaos control.
Despite the fact that it wasn't light or dark, Yatagarasu
No,
was
it's
one of the
not.
deck's linchpins because
No,
of
it's
the way it
not.
interacted with Chaos Emperor Dragon. Though Emperor Dragon's effect was a double-edged sword designed to leave both players on an equal playing field, the person playing it could dodge having their entire hand depleted as long as there was a Sanguinar Witch on their side of the field when the effect was activated. See, Chaos Emperor Dragon didn't stop the cards it sent to the graveyard from activating their effects. If it sent Sanguinar Witch from the field to the grave this way, they could still search for anything they normally would. Yatagarasu happened to be searchable by both.
This actually slotted into hand destruction decks really easily, and Chaos Emperor Dragon was just over the top with, like, a Sanguin or a Witch of the Black Forest on the battlefield, because then you get the effect, as soon as everybody loses all their cards, your opponent gets one draw step. If it's a brick. They just never want to play the game because you have it in your hand.
Yada use pick.
Oh, guess what? If you happen to have a Sangen or a Witch of the Black Forest on your field, just pay 1,000 and you can search Yatagarasu and just automatically win the game.
It's because it introduced a lock which is worse than, some people say worse than an FTK, but it's basically
No, it's not.
in the same realm of first turn killing someone. You lock them out of drawing.
Like I said, those chaos monsters were literally, they took all of the good stuff that we've had throughout the years, and they were the missing piece of the puzzle.
Minus-
and
yeah,
the
minus
complete
200.
Trifecta.
Minus 200,
of
pick.
What we deemed one of the most toxic formats in the game.
Toxic, my thing.
But
I
there's
love
no
I
way
love
these
toxic.
cards could actually
But
change
I'm just
things
saying that
that
Yada
much, right?
Yada
These
is
were
not
two unsearchable
99% of the
monsters. Sure,
time.
some people might
Unless
build
like
their
what
decks
they
around them,
showed
but the
where
idea
you
that they were going to
summon
completely
chaos
change
like
the
in the
entire
first two
tournament
turns,
scene, well, that was just
and your opponent
ridiculous,
doesn't
wasn't it?
die. Like if they're gonna die before you search. That's what I'm saying.
Within about a week of the set's release, Chaos decks were everywhere at both the local level and the regional level, but many players were skeptical of the viability of these new cards.
What? Of course he's overrated. He's a secret from a new set, and he's a dragon. Even V Lord was overrated when it came out. Oh well, I haven't had a chance to try him out yet. So why are you yapping? But when I do, it'll be a Chaos Burner. As for his effect, you better hope you get a big lead in a game when it's used, unless you're overly confident in your top decking. I shall attempt a Chaos Control eventually, but I shall have to wait and see how easily I can get him into my hand. Sorry if this has been posted somewhere else, but I think that CED is overrated. Duh, read a topic. That's like, this is like the thread of like this Dragon Poo. I've been trying him out constantly in many different site. Edit. Yu-Gi-Oh! Tiger. Please don't give me that. What is this? It's such a lame way of getting a higher post count. Many people think that Yada is skillless as well. Not me though. As Speedy, thank you, well put. So they're editing for replying? Pojo was for yappers like it was MD Reddit back then. Yeah, he's definitely really overrated. Wait.
There was already a decent amount of debate
But
about
who
Chaos was better than
who could
Chaos decks were everywhere at both the local level and the regional
it's like
level, but
blocking
many
the
players were skeptical of
bruh. Who could say what ability to what? And no, I can't. But it's true that if they start
there was
pop
already a decent
decking,
amount of debate about whether Chaos was better
draw
than Control
power.
or vice versa. And while plenty of people
Oh, hybrid makes the deck a lot slower. Use either control or chaos. Actually, I have a lot more problems dealing with pure control decks than pure chaos decks or control chaos hybrid decks. Pure control decks were what? Right now in this format.
were leaning towards Chaos, there were also
We in
plenty
2004
of
now.
other people who believed that non-Chaos builds of hand control
Control has always been the best deck type and will be until the banning. Chaos hasn't won any major tournament in Japan, for your information. Black Magician King, okay.
were still the best decks in the game, and
What's iTrader?
that things were going to stay that way as long as the cards that allowed the deck to function were legal to play. Classic hand control lists
Told you
that
so.
didn't include either of the Chaos
Yeah, like tier 0 meta here upcoming.
Classic hand
Agents. Okay, this is the deck list.
that didn't include either of the Chaos monsters continued to populate and perform well.
Oh,
at
this
least
is the non-chaos hybrid control. Okay, just like Genzo. There are threads where you could coordinate trades that the rating one successfully trade for trustworthy. So like eBay?
regional events, as did non-chaos versions of Warrior and Zombie, along with a few left field picks like Gravekeepers.
Meta over you. Let's go!
All of these decks ran into the same problem, though. For some reason, they kept losing to Chaos.
What's the reason? wait, oh, go back. I gotta read these forms. Hand control. Oh, okay, wait. Go back to the Alicia.
Problem, though.
So wait, scientist was still legal. Scientist FTK. Warrior, Gravekeeper, Zombie Beatdown, hand control. What's the reason? Why is Chaos so good? Really are powerful. Chaos decks were a bit rare, but this is how he won.
You were just at such a severe disadvantage if you were not playing some
Is
sort of
the pie chart gonna go
all the
bigger?
way through late March and even early April.
Yes, I used to be uber hyped up about the Chaos Monster and how devastating they'll be in my deck. Then I realized something after getting soldiers, of course. Support them naturally. I figure, hey, I can just run 3 DD Warrior, Lady, a Reflect Browner, and a couple of Shining Angel, and then I realized how restricting that can be. A majority being dark monsters, that makes the dark monsters to use rather easy to decide, but the light monsters are still impossible to find. Poo-poo light. Even Blade Knight isn't in the deck. Anyways, as I've been facing Chaos over and over and beating it with my simple little deck over and over, I can speak from experience. What do you guys think? That was gotta join the Chaos now.
Of the idea of building an entire deck around 2 unsearchable monsters, Chaos was proving to be pretty flexible. The more time passed, the more apparent it became that it wasn't strictly necessary to build a deck around these 2. It wasn't unheard of for people to play 3 Blackluster Soldier and 3
think
Chaos
they
Emperor
play 3
Dragon,
each,
but
no?
it was also pretty common for people to just play one of both,
Yeah.
one of one or the other, 2 of both.
I mean, the only reason why you would, if you could flip 3, and you would flip 3, is what if they banish your shit? And then you can't, or like it goes to the grave, but then you cannot Monster Reborn it. Since I think Monster Reborn is at 1 now, no?
2 of one or the other, the ratios didn't really seem to matter. Before long, some vanilla hand control players even started playing a single copy of Chaos Emperor Dragon in the side deck. The cards just kind of fit into a lot of decks, especially Control. Not much, if anything, needed to be changed to include
Cyberjar saying oh, look at
them. Though non-chaos decks were still performing well, for example,
Yeah,
at
it's
2
also
different
builds as
regional
well.
tournaments, a non-chaos
the guy with the white shirt with the Warrior Rush deck won. I was the only person who beat him in a tourney during the Swiss rounds.
Chaos Warrior deck came in first place, it was becoming more and more standard to play at least one Emperor, Dragon, or Soldier. By the middle of April, almost every Control deck had started playing one of both, and what little room for deviation existed at this point would be almost completely eliminated by the next update to the Forbidden and Limited list.
Uh-oh. Why are we using Pokemon music?
17th,
I mean, they used it
Soldier
before,
and
but...
Emperor Dragon were both limited, but this didn't actually diminish their metagame presence. Strangely, even though there were only 2 of them from this point forward, and they were more often than not the only monsters in any deck that played them that couldn't be searched for by either Witch or Sangan, most people still called the decks that played them Chaos decks. Again, it wasn't that decks that played them were dramatically different in composition than decks that didn't. It's just that they were both so powerful that they turned any game that they participated in into a race to get one of them onto the field first, or to take the steps necessary to make sure they couldn't hit the field in the first place. Summoning either of them was almost like an alternate linkage, and there were plenty of cards in the game that made it easy to perform the setup necessary to do so. The existence of the Chaos Monsters made putting resources into the graveyard desirable, to the extent that the intended drawbacks of cards like Graceful Charity and Painful Choice were more benefit than cost at this point. And not just these 2 monsters either, this set added 2 more high-profile Chaos Monsters to the game.
Oh, this one, yes, this one.
Some people took to running Chaos Sorcerer, essentially a cheaper, less powerful version of Black Luster Soldier, in order to supplement the 2 more powerful Chaos monsters.
Chaos Sorcerer just by itself is just an incredibly powerful card. Like, yeah, it has the same cost as BLS or Chaos Emperor, so maybe you're not getting as much value as you would from those other cards, but Chaos Sorcerer is still a 2300 attack monster that can be special summoned for free, and at the very least, it can just banish a monster. There's plays where you can just summon out Chaos Sorcerer, banish one of your opponent's cards, and then use it as tribute fodder for, like, Jinzo? Like, that's insane!
Even more popular than Chaos Sorcerer was Dark Magician of Chaos, sometimes referred to as Demok. It didn't function the same way the other Chaos monsters did, but at the time of its release, it was widely considered to be the most powerful 2 tribute monster in the entire game. Its ability to immediately retrieve any spell cards from the graveyard further incentivized the use of cards like Painful Choice and Mirage of Nightmare, since now on top of the fact that light and dark monsters in the graveyard could be considered live resources, Dark Magician of Chaos could turn any spell cards in the graveyard into live resources as well. Its second effect was extremely good at countering Chaos decks, since it could rob
this is a counter for the Chaos
they
thing.
Needed to summon themselves, and it was also good at countering vanilla Control decks or any other decks that played cards with effects that triggered when they were sent to the graveyard, which was just about every deck in the metagame at this point. While most people
Reasoning monster gate to summon it from deck, add it back.
To summon another was almost never worth it. This wasn't really a problem for Demok, since he ended up in the graveyard very frequently. Most people didn't tribute summon him. It was a lot more common to summon him from the graveyard with one of the game's 3 revival staples. When using Monster Reborn specifically, he could add the Reborn back to hand, allowing the player to special summon another monster from their graveyard immediately. With either Soldier or Emperor Dragon in hand to back this up, this was almost always enough to deal lethal damage, and this could all be done in
power is low here. We need the OG Yugi boomers.
High-level play was accelerating to a breakneck pace, one where games could be decided in as few as 2 or 3 turns.
Go back. No, that's not 2 turns. That's like 20 turns. Okay, so you're telling me there was an anti-meta, but that shit don't matter. The pie chart gonna go more in chaos. 不如现在游戏吗
Had more than enough draw power to
Modern
make sure
Yu-Gi-Oh!
they
Be
saw one of
like,
the two Chaos monsters that early, and as soon as one of them hit
Oh
the
my
field, it was game over. As the format continued to evolve, it became clearer and clearer that the only way to compete with Chaos was to play Chaos.
this is just tier. Chaos being there is 75, and chart is vile. I think Zodiac was more than 75, no. Tier wasn't even at 75, no.
Or to build a deck that could end games just as quickly as it could.
Like, how's scientists still not banned here? And that thing only has like 10%. Zodiac.
Magical Scientist FTK decks were still running rampant, and Invasion of Chaos had actually made them a bit more consistent by adding Reload to the game, a card that could take unplayable hands and turn them into hands capable of performing the one-turn kill combo. Some people turned to Magical Scientist FTK because
Yeah, I'm pretty sure the highest percentage was Zodiacs. 最高仅图应该是12兽吧，猪类都没到过，就是75以上啊。
believed it was one of the only decks fast enough to compete with Chaos.
Like, I remember, I think it was before tier. They did like, you know, like no balance, so like you could play everything. Like basically you could play, I guess like you could play 3-pot agree. Like there's no balance at all whatsoever, and you could play any deck you want. I think, and then I'm pretty sure Zodiac won. But because I brought it up one time, and then people were like, "Are you sure it's not a tier?" And I'm like, "Okay, I think maybe it was before tier then, not Genesis." There was no point system. 100% Zodiac variant and Top Cut. No, not even in Top Cut. I guess in the pie chart. Okay, it wasn't 100%, but I know it was. I think like the most, like you know, like percentage on a pie chart in history. I'm pretty sure it was Zodiac. Like tier wasn't even. Actually, I think tier wasn't even 75%. And then right here, chaos right here right now is 75. Right. 不是 spy 吧？是 spy 吗？是国内有人做的，是国内的比赛，就是娱乐赛。是 spy 吗？ Is spiral? There's same as spiral power chart. Oh, wait a sec. Yeah, wait a sec. Maybe it's spiral then. It's not Zodiac. Spiral had a one-time thing. Spiral 多少 90%? You know what? I could just search it. No, I should be able to find a pie chart. Spiral Yu-Gi-Oh! Meta chart, no? Yu-Gi-Oh! Meta. Do we have I need to find a pie chart. Let's see. Spiral. 全身上只有蜜旋系统红利。我找一找，我能不能找到 Spiral? All right, this one. LCG Meta Report number 2. Right here. 92.31%. Right, this one. 是不是这个？And then Zodiac, let me see. Zodiac, Yu-Gi-Oh! Meta chart. 下哭. Let's see. Yeah, this one. Yeah, 62%. Okay, maybe actually no, it was not more than Chaos then. If Chaos is 75? Oh, right here, 75. Is there something that's more than 75? I think it was 75 then. Right here? Zodiac? Yeah, if you plus all the other Zodiacs, right, the Zodiac variants, then 75. Okay, so it's like... So yeah, it's spiral then. 是这个，就是这个. Okay, but what about... I need to find out, actually. Somebody should have talked about this, no? Like, who won? 那无尽卡表后来是谁赢了呢? I feel like it was Zoo, though. Let me see. I feel like I should be able to find it. Who won? I need to know the champ of that. 现在吧，不是肯定能搜到吧 ？Let's see. Well, let me find it. Oh, here. There's even this was 3 years ago. There's a full power Terror vs full power Zodiac duel here. Here. My fanboy says, bro. 蟹敏竹类 vs 全胜12兽。Final.
对这个
Who won?
这个妈妈多的手可抱着。
现在应该还好。
But I think tier 1, no? If we're talking about full tier plus vs full Zodiac.
好吧。
Andy 有一个3局无性线，好像那个比赛是猪类前吧？猪类还没出来前，好像是12兽赢了。
他后面盖的这些东西，不过也没用了。
小时候没看到。
陨石。
那是扛不住的。
谁赢了？
也没用了。
猪类吧？
没看到，小时候没看到。还是被。
说的话是。
我看让猪。
You lose.
哪怕是爆。
6元的是区别。Okay, yeah. So yeah, this was the okay here. Okay, yeah. So champion tier. Oh, here. This is okay. And then there was another tournament before this. 是啊，12兽。对，yeah. So yeah, before tier, it was like. Without like banless, it was Zodiac, and then after tier, it was tier basically. Yeah. 是。Okay.
The new set had also laid the groundwork for another similar deck by adding Manticore of Darkness to the card pool.
Look at the one card here.
This card was mostly unremarkable, aside from its involvement in a loop where it could summon itself from the graveyard. Combined with Card of Safe Return, a card released all the way back in Labyrinth of Nightmare, this combo enabled anyone who performed it to draw through their entire deck in one turn if they wanted to. Neither deck was consistent enough to truly compete with Chaos, though.
Look at how many cards. Wait, it's gonna be more than 75%. Look at this. This is Zodiac, right? It's a Zodiac.
To truly compete with Chaos, though.
Look at this. $17 cards. This is gonna get more? Yes. Wait, so this is more than 75. This is what, 80?
Other decks capable of operating at a high speed, like Warrior Rush and Machine Limiter Removal Beatdown, did their best to compete with Chaos, and while they managed to place well, it was impossible.
Wait, I should be able to also search the Chaos, like, what's the highest percentage, right? Chaos, Yu-Gi-Oh! Meta chart. They semi-limited, which noticeably didn't stop. Yeah, it didn't stop. Semi-limit doesn't mean shit. I just banned that. Okay. Chaos. Bruh, it's too boomer that it doesn't even show up. Do I just say Chaos Hunter then? No, not Chaos Hunter. Chaos Dragon. Yu-Gi-Oh! Meta. Where I need a pie chart. Trying to... Is it called Chaos Control then? Yu-Gi-Oh! Chart. Cannot believe they printed CED in the way they did. Well, Chaos 2
played,
cards
but
here.
only rarely, and usually as a one-of in the side deck. Enemy Controller was much more popular, but nowhere near as popular as the most noteworthy cards from prior sets. At the 2004 US National Championship, many players outright ignored these cards in favor of older cards that had been rediscovered, given a new purpose thanks to the Chaos Monsters. Just before the proper US National Championship, there were 2 last chance qualifier events where players could compete for a chance to be invited to nationals. Over 200 players participated.
More than 85%. Yeah. Okay. Still not Spider, but more than Zodiac.
In these events, and 85%
To send a
of
deck
them
and
were
maintain,
playing at least
okay.
one Blackluster Soldier or Chaos Emperor Dragon. Most of these 85% were playing both, where the idea of a game dominated by the 2 Chaos Monsters had...
I mean, if you're playing some other, like they say, what, vanilla hand control or something, like if you play at least 1 or 2 copies, like 1 copy of each, that doesn't mean that you're a Chaos deck though. No? 他说是参赛里85%起码下了1张或者各1张，但是你下了1张或各1张，不代表你算是混沌了。
once seemed ridiculous to a good chunk of the player base.
85%, yeah, 85% meaning you running the card, but doesn't mean that it doesn't count in the pie chart though, right? If you're doing like a meta pie chart.
Just as ridiculous to think that there was anything that could come along and stop it. The April update
不算吧，对啊。So like pie chart means that it has to be at least like some variant, or like that's the main thing that you're playing. Yeah, wow. This is just like you're running things like package. 就挂小轴嘛. You're running cashier package basically.
Hadn't slowed the deck down. The release
光按高级属性，那还是按比较高级。I'm pretty sure dark is even better than light, and there's like more cards in dark, like attribute.
Of a new set hadn't slowed the deck down, and at the 2004 World Championship, it became clear that even banning seemingly vital pieces of the deck like Yatagarasu and Painful Choice couldn't stop it.
What? Look! See what I mean? You banned my bird and didn't do shit!
The World Championship, which this time was hosted on July 25th in Los Angeles, was a bit different than prior high-profile Yu-Gi-Oh! Events. This was the first official Yu-Gi-Oh! Event outside of regions where the OCG was played that didn't use the TCG's ban list. Since cards were released in the OCG well ahead of the TCG, the OCG's Forbidden and Limited list needed to be different to reflect this. All the way back on March 1st of 2004, at the same time Invasion of Chaos was released in the TCG, the OCG released an update to the Forbidden and Limited list where multiple cards were actually placed in the Forbidden section. Many of these cards were staples, or at least considered integral to Chaos.
Everything here. Cyberjar, Fiberjar, Fairy Lily, Painful Choice, Little Grio, Change of Heart, Raigeki.
To function.
Better
This
Duster.
ban list with all 10 of these banned cards was used at the 2004 World Championship, and so for that reason, it's a bit difficult to judge the viability of certain deck builds or
Inferior
tech choices.
order.
But regardless,
yeah,
the
that
ban
was a
list
lot of
update
better.
didn't actually
Certain regards wasn't particularly surprising. 31 who attended first 6 round, 26 was playing. So that's how many percentage? 26 divided by 31. That's more than 90. Or no, that's like close to 90. 83%. 83.87%. So more than 80, yeah. Like close to 85. However, of the 5 that was not chaos, there was some definite surprise. Huh?
seemed to affect Chaos's representation at the event. Just like at the US National Championship, about 85%
yeah, like
of
about
the decks
close to
present were
85, yeah.
Chaos decks, including the decks built by all of the players who made it to the top 4. All 4 of these players, and the winner of the event, Masatoshi Togawa from Japan in particular, were playing decks that seemed to be focused on Chaos.
Okay. Yeah, so bird deadage. Look, how is bird deadage, but the scientist is not deadage, huh?
Gawa's list was notable for featuring 2 copies of Kaiku in the main deck, an extremely powerful anti-chaos card, since keeping it on the field meant keeping one's opponent from summoning the chaos monsters. Following this event, Chaos and all of its variants continued to perform exceptionally well all across the TCG. Many players assumed that when the TCG received its next ban list update, it would begin using the version of the ban list that was effective at the 2004 World Championship. And since that list hadn't affected Chaos's representation at all, it seemed like the deck was going to be around for a very, very long time. One thing that Upper Deck and Konami had taken note of at the World Championship, however, was the positive reaction to the ban list. A lot of people seemed pretty happy that they didn't have to worry about cards like Imperial Order, Harpy's Feather Duster, or Raigeki. And a lot of other players, not just limited to those who were present at the World Championship, seemed a little bit sick of the Chaos monsters. And so the TCG decided to take things a few steps further than the OCG had.
Well, it was pretty obvious. There was a major breakthrough after Invasion of Chaos, which was the very first ban list.
Forbidden cards.
Anything that felt like it would make the game not quote-unquote fun, they were just completely taken.
On August 25th, through a somewhat unorthodox update to the
Japanese, Asian, English counterfeit cards are not legal for use in official tournaments. Oh yeah, God cards also not legal. Okay. Worldwide card use policy. Okay. Forbidden cards. See the hot news page for more details. Hot news page.
Forbidden and limited list, it was announced that 13 cards would be forbidden starting October 1st. The game would stay as it was for just over a month, and during this period, Chaos continued to dominate as expected. At what was then the largest Yu-Gi-Oh! Tournament ever, with nearly 1,200 players, a European event named Battle City Amsterdam, every single player in the top 8 was playing both Blackluster Soldier and Chaos Emperor Dragon, and 6 of these players were also playing Yatagarasu.
What? I thought Yada was banned. Or they did, like, the champion just didn't use Yada in his deck.
August announcements had upset a few people because, well, frankly, if the October list looked anything like Upper Deck said it was going to, it was going to be a total bloodbath. To a lot of people, something like this was starting to look pretty necessary. The game was approaching an event horizon of sorts, something conveyed extremely well by the fact that just a week after these changes were announced, but not officially enforced, at a massive tournament with exponentially more player attendance than any tournaments before.
So they had, what, 200 players? Well, but that was a regional, no? So it wasn't like everybody could show up. You need to have points, right? This is more than 1,000. For... Is Battle City and regional? Does it say? I'm assuming this is a regional, no?
The decks created by the top 8 players there all shared at least 20 of the same cards. The game was facing a serious
Look, no Yada
problem, or lack thereof.
Well, I mean, the top, what, top 6? They said top 6 was playing Yada?
To say that it did change the game when these bans finally took effect on October 1st would be a massive understatement. This update was insane, borderline apocalyptic, and in addition to the bans that were announced back in August, this list also limited 5 cards out of the blue.
New. Chaos Morphing Draw, Mystic Slaves, Typhoon Protector, a Sanctuary, Tribute, Tribunal Tribute? Torturable Tribute?
With the stroke of a pen from Upper Deck and Konami, Chaos, at least as people currently knew it, was totally annihilated.
No! My bird did nothing wrong! Look, the call to everybody in here.
Along with the rest of the metagame.
Bruh. Wait, they say what, 5 and then plus what, 13? It was 13 in total, no? This is 12 cards. Mystic Limited too strong. No, this is banless. This is forbidden, no?
Things
right here.
Lot. Many of these cards were in a league of their own in terms of popularity, to the extent that the term staple doesn't do them justice. It can be said without hyperbole that most of them were included in literally every successful tournament deck. Of the 3 banned cards that this didn't apply to, 2 of them had been key pieces in the most powerful deck in the game. That said, the list didn't fundamentally change the game as much as one might expect. There were still quite a few building blocks left over from the previous format that people could use as a foundation for.
This is post-ban list.
Seeing as there were also a lot of cards that people had had experimented with throughout the reign of the Chaos Monsters, there was actually still plenty to work with when constructing this new metagame. Plus, on top of that, there were 2 more core booster sets scheduled to be released around this time. As long as both of them weren't repeats of the Ancient Sanctuary
They have
situation,
repeats, no?
then they'd have to include some new cards that could help fill the void. Soul of the Duelist was released on October 1st, the same day these ban list changes took effect, and the next set, Rise of Destiny, wasn't far behind. It came out just 2 months later on the 1st of December for most TCG players, though some regions, like France and Spain, received the set even earlier on the 1st of November. These sets both shared the same major issue, which was that they were mostly filled with lackluster cards. There are many things about them that are arguably more interesting than the cards they added to the game, actually. Soul of the Duelist was the first TCG booster set to follow the OCG's release structure. The OCG's core sets had always brought less cards to the table than individual releases in the TCG, and that's because the TCG had always combined 2 of the OCG's smaller packs into 1 larger pack. The packs didn't actually contain more cards inside them, but drew from a larger card pool.
Why did they do that though? Wouldn't they want to have more product to sell instead of combining 2 into 1?
This was the first set to be a 1-to-1 import of an OCG
Yeah, the
set.
Sinister
Soul of the
Snake.
Duelist surprised players by only adding 60
Everything
new
was
cards
better
to the game.
before
It also
they
removed
Errata.
secret rares
Pre-Errata
entirely,
is
which in
always
theory meant
broken.
that many of the set's better cards would be easier to obtain. The thing is, the set really only had 1 good card, and that was Mobius the Frost Monarch. With Feather Duster banned and Mystical Space Typhoon limited, spell and trap removal had become much more scarce than many players were used to. This card allowed players to easily destroy multiple cards in their opponent's back row, which
So
made
nice
it a
card came
popular
out.
side deck option moving forward.
Maybe they
But
were
that was
not
it, really.
meta
Ojama King
relevant.
and Sandwich were decent
Oh,
cards
right
that could be
here. Oh, these? Is this what you're thinking? Ojama King and Sandwich?
summoned with Magical Scientist, and there were some other cards in the set that saw
Oh,
experimentation.
here. Oh, Chorus the Black Flame Dragon. Hollow Light Barrier. Mystic Sword at level 2. Sandwich Draco.
Around this time period, but none of them made their way into topping deck lists at
No
premier
top.
events, aside from occasionally popping up in 1 or 2 side decks here and there. Rise of Destiny was very similar in terms of how it impacted the game. Darkblade the Dragon Knight was another popular fusion monster that could be summoned by Magical Scientist.
对，
and
他
two
说
trap
这
cards
包
from
里
the
只有
set,
冰
Divine
地
Wrath
就
and
比
Picarius
较
Circle of
在上位
Enchantment
里。
made their way into tournament deck lists almost immediately.
What the fuck am I looking at here? Oh, it's like a Dragon Knight. I don't know. Is this a UTR? That looks like a. This looks like a UTR.
But usually only in the side deck and only occasionally. Something else that was unique about these sets is that neither of them prompted a dedicated ban list update. This had technically been true of Ancient Sanctuary as well, though according to Upper Deck, the October 1st list had been, quote, updated for...
Update for Ancient Sanctuary. Okay, this is the same. Okay, it's just the same. It says the ban list.
All things considered, the Titanic ban list update, the changes to the way...
Yeah, like, Asian England is still prohibitive for any territory other than Asia.
All things...
Wait. This is different. This is... Wait. Did they always have Asian English? I gotta check now. They were not always... No? Asian English, let me see. When they were printing those. Okay, yeah, they printed in 2020. Wait, no. What the fuck? Wait, 2009, 2004. 2003, 2002. Okay, they were printing it. LOBAE. August 8th, 2002. That's the first one, yeah. So they had Asian English from the start. Right? Very early, but they discontinued it. But no, because like I remember they saying that they're gonna have something like a couple years ago, right? So they discontinued it and restarted it again, right? Yeah. Until yeah. That's because I'm looking on the wiki, and then they jump in between. I think. Release. Can I do release dates? Actually, no. 2001. 2001 July Asian English Weekly Shonen Jump Lottery prize card. Yeah, and an LB 2002, 2003, 2004, 2005, 6, 7, 8, 9. No, 8, 2007, 2009, and then they discontinued it. And they brought it back again 2023. So they discontinued for like what 20 no like 14 years. They were legal for English. Right here it says Asian English is still prohibited for any territory. Well, I mean, if you had the sleeves, they wouldn't know. Well, and then but at the card, like I would say like AE or something, like the code in the front, what you like you could tell that it was not TCG. Like it wasn't like I don't know English or like like you know the other like the actual legal TCG cards, like you would be able to tell that is from AE, you know. They stopped at Crossroad Chaos. No, they stopped at 2009 Crimson Crisis, April. And then they restarted again in April 2023 for Creation and Pack. Right here. I'm not gonna show the wiki, but this is what I'm looking at right now. Yeah. Yeah. And then if you go on to the list, just click the arrow so you can see it in the release date. Like in chronological order.
Things considered, the Titanic ban list update, the changes to the way the ban list was handled, and to the core booster sets, the game felt noticeably different from this point forward. And these weren't even the only new developments in the tournament scene. While regional tournaments were still happening just as frequently as they
very
had
close to
been before,
date.
starting in
Unk be
December,
like,
they
what is
routinely
this?
played-
Entry fee $15. Participant 120. Tap tap tap. Warriors come out to play. Tap tap tap. What is this? Yeah. Oh,
a new kind of
SJ.
tournament
C.
called Shonen Jump Championships. These events
Oh, this is new. I thought so before SJC, it was just what? It was just nationals. Well, like it was not called like for TCG, it wasn't called SJAC. There's an announcement for TCG where we could play AE from the past. Oh, you mean the original Asian English had the back is not OCG? Wait, let me see. Old Asian English card back. Is that what you're trying to say here? Oh, right here. Asian English cards from 3 different sets, 3 different logos in the back. Right here. There's a Reddit post. Left to right, Japanese OCG, Old English, New Asian English. No, it still had the logo. Wait a sec. Oh, wait, there's a comment. Yeah, right here. Right here. You missed out one more for the short-lived revival AE prints. Oh, the last one, 2009? Crimson Crisis, Raging Battle, and Magician Instruction Deck. They used the TCG back. Yeah, this one. So the last one that before they got it back. So Asian English has changed back twice, from the original AE to the TCG, and from the TCG to Japanese OCG back. Ha, yes. Can I find it? Wait, let me see. Crimson Crisis. Asian English. Carback. Right. Can I find that? Oh, this. Oh my god, right here. What the update policy are Asian English cards with the TCG logo on the back legal for competitive play. So technically, you could play them then, no? Like this one, right? Is like this thing. Is that what we're saying here? Let me see. Yeah. If it has a TCG back, it will be legal. If you choose to play with a card like this, double check with head judge to confirm. Yeah. It's from the 3 sets with TCG back on AE, then they're legal. Yeah, so it has to be like the 3 sets. People not announce them and cheaper modern cards, but they're disappointed. Oh yeah, no. Well, I mean, to be honest, it doesn't make sense because you have to sleeve the cards anyways. And then the argument is that if you sleeve the cards, you could still you could still see the back logo, which if your sleeve can see the black logo, like if you're doing a white sleeve, means that your sleeves are like if you could kind of see the logo throughout the sleeve, then you're like you could be cheating, right? So it doesn't make sense. The only other argument would be that, well, I mean, but that argument it doesn't make sense because like let's say like I'm playing TCG, but I'm not playing English. It's still legal, but then if your opponent doesn't understand, you'll just have to look up the card in English because you don't understand the language. So you should be still able to do that with OCG cards, whether it's Chinese or Korean or JP. So to me, it just means that they don't want it because you guys can have cheaper cards for legal play. TCG 标志改了吗？不是，是最早因为 TCG 的没有 OCG 的 Asian English 就是亚英版，它背后的logo 是游戏王，就是日本的那个游戏王的汉字嘛。然后其实是有3个，然后它是从2002年到2009年，它除了2008年它有这个 AE， 然后它是后面有三个包是背后的那个卡的 logo 是 TCG 的 logo， 就是写着 Yu-Gi-Oh， 就是 YUGIOH， 对，然后再后来是它是几年？来我看一下它是几年。是23年又开始印了，又开始印 AE， 然后又是就是汉字的背。然后 TCG 的规则是，如果是它是汉字的背的话，你是不能合法的，就是打比赛是不能用的。但所以说，其实说 AE 的话是有3包是它的背面是合法的，等于说你可以用，因为它官方规定说是你的背后不能是 OCG 的 logo。对，所以说其实有 AE 的卡是可以用的，因为它是 TCG 的 logo。不是得改，一直是不可以用 AE 的。很久以前就是00几年的时候，他就说不能用 AE， 就是 TCG 的比赛是不能用 AE 的。Right？ 不是我的意思是说，但是按照比赛来讲的话是不科学的，因为如果说我去玩 TCG， 我去 TCG 比赛，我去 TCG 打比方啊，就是比如说我不是美国人，虽然我是美国人啊，我就跟你解释一下，就比如说打比方，如果我是西班牙人，然后我玩的是西班牙语的，就是西语的游戏王卡，它也是 TCG 嘛。那我去比赛的话，万一如果说对手不太清楚效果什么的，那就是当场拿出个英文的嘛，因为他看得懂英文。打比方他看不懂西文，那他就是看英文的这个卡面，然后就是理解一下这个卡是干嘛的，对吧？所以说按照同样的逻辑，你是可以用看日语啊或者韩文啊或者就是简中的卡是一样的逻辑，对吧？就是他们有些说法说是不能用 OCG 的卡背 logo， 是因为如果你套着卡套，有些卡套你是能隐约看到那个 logo 的。那如果你已经能隐约看到 logo 了，比如说你是一个比较薄的白色的卡套，你如果隐约能看到 logo 的话，就代表说其实你已经可以作弊了，因为你能看到就是卡的一些不同嘛，对吧？所以说唯一的解释是他不想让 TCG 买到更便宜的卡，然后让这些卡可以去到 OCG 来玩，不是混着玩，是压根不 ，it's not legal， 就 OCG 的卡，包括亚英，就是 Asian English 是不能在 TCG 比赛用的，懂了吗？亚英是 OCG，Asian English is OCG, not TCG. It's not legal. Unless it has a TCG back, which is like 3 packs. 懂不懂？懂不懂？ Like I just realized like the other day, I think somebody told me in Magic, like it doesn't matter what language. I think like you could play OCG cards in TCG tourneys. 不是为了打牌，不是我意思说，如果便宜的话，如果 legal 肯定就是买日本的卡。Like you don't even need to. I'm not sure if Asian English is more expensive than JP. But if it was legal and you know what your cards are doing, and it's legal to play in tournament, you would just buy JP. Assuming if JP was the cheapest one. But either way, JP is cheaper than English, and I'm assuming other TCG.
In part by Upper Deck and in part by Shonen Jump, the company responsible for publishing the Yu-Gi-Oh manga. According to Upper Deck, SJC tournaments were meant to be a tier above regionals.
Well, I mean, back in the day, you didn't really have access anyways, don't know. Like in 2003, it would be like, I don't know, like it would be harder to import OCG cards. Right.
Terms of prestige, not on the same level as something like the World Championship, of course, but essentially the height of competitive Yu-Gi-Oh during the normal tournament season. Among the top 8, deck lists were somewhat varied since the new meta was still...
The latest edition. Organized play is off to an auspicious start. Over 300 duelists of all age and skill level turned out for the SoCal launch of the series. Solid player turnout. Weighty prize package, including COVID Cyber Scene. What's that? Price? Last minute entrance slowed down the registration process, resulting in late start. Round was underway by noon. Bruh, they were already playing past 10 p.m. 209 competitors entered the fray, hoping to win the title of champion. Cyberson is the 5,000 pay life point Fusion Summon. So that's like the price card? Right here, they say weighty price packages. Oh shit, is Julia? Oh, Julia. Okay. I don't know who's Julia. Wait, is she like one of the OG like champion? Or like top? I remember the wiki where they were like notable female players, like competitive. Oh, she's the highest judge? Okay, never mind it. AE was discontinued in 2000. You mean 2007? You mean 2009? Whatever reason, they briefly printed a few products. Okay, yeah, in 2009, presumably using the same supply chain at TCG. Upper Deck? They had TCG card backs, but it was also around the time the Upper Deck fiasco happened, so I presume that had a hand in why they stopped doing it. I see. Well, it's probably also not that popular, right? I don't know. Or else, like, why wouldn't they discontinue and then they reprinted it in 2023, right?
Far from solved, but there was one type of deck that was more powerful.
The rounds ran fairly smoothly as most duelists finished their matches well before the end of rounds. Warrior Machine, Hybrid Lockdown, Scientist. How Scientist still legal here, huh? Were commonly seen, but the arena was seasoned with occasional weather, Earth Spellcaster, or Dragon deck. Pet decks.
It actually had a few different names because it wasn't.
Each table usually had at least one top 8 regional playmat infused. Wow.
Since while each
Cookie Cutter? Wait, go back.
It wasn't particularly well defined at this point. One of its most popular
showing that what? Competition to be reckoned with.
Their names was Cookie Cutter, since while each version of the deck usually wasn't the same from person to person, it was generally thought of as an assortment of various staple cards. In Metagame.com's coverage of SJC Gen Con, they called this deck Hybrid, though many players still called it Chaos Control because
Lockdown, Stun, Age, they have Stun.
With a suite of light and dark monsters. The deck's identity and game plan certainly weren't as clear as those of prior decks like Beatdown, Control, and Chaos, but most players...
Yada's not Control. Wait, what?
Game plan certainly weren't as clear as those of prior
look,
decks like
Beatdown, Control, and then Chaos is by itself.
Chaos, but most players knew they were looking at it when they saw it. This
Yellow
deck, whatever
yeah, okay, so this is just this is like the wait, what is it called in English? Like random deck pile. Like you put like 5 archetype in the deck.
Took up 6 of the top 8 spots at SJC Gen Con, and all 6 of them were playing Black Luster Soldier, in addition to 21 more of the exact same cards. 29 of the same cards can be found in at least 5 of the 6 Cookie Cutter main decks, 31 in at least 4, and 37 in at least 3. Given how much all of these lists had in common, it was pretty much impossible to deny that this deck did have a unique identity, even if it was one that was much less pronounced than most players were used to. The remaining 2 top 8 players were Henry K, playing Magical Scientist FTK, and Miguel Flores, Perez playing an Earth. Miguel's deck was pretty similar to the other cookie cutter lists in a lot of ways, so in order to distinguish between the two of them, it wasn't uncommon to call the more popular version of the deck Cookie Cutter Chaos and to call
Cookie
other
Cutter
non-chaos
Chaos
versions of the deck Cookie Cutter Blank. In this case,
So it's just called cookie cutter. I don't think people say like this type of archetype or not this type of archetype, this type of deck build. No, cookie cutter. No. Archetype are even thing. Yes, chaos is a archetype. Scientist is an archetype. What do you mean?
One thing that's particularly striking about the deck lists here is the lack of cards from Soul of the Duelist and Rise of Destiny. Some of them were present.
If there was no archetype, then we wouldn't have a pie chart having like what 85% chaos and what 5% or 10% scientists and I don't know 10% of hand control or something that they had right here.
But the tournament was dominated by cards from March of 2004 and earlier. The only deck present in the top 8 that significantly benefited from any new cards was Magical Scientist, which was made even more consistent by the newly released Serial Spell and by Monster Gate from Ancient Sanctuary. Dark Magician of Chaos, Reload, and the slew of new fusion monsters with more than 2100 attack points didn't hurt either. So the Magical Scientist deck present at this tournament was probably the most consistent version of the deck so far. Things didn't change too much in the coming months, at least not on a macro level. At the next 3 SJC events, which all took place in February of 2004.
Yeah, SJC, metagame staff.
Cookie Cutter Chaos either maintained or increased the top 8 representation that it established at SJC Gen Con. Now, while the big picture metagame...
What is Gen Con? It's just the name of the convention?
Mostly stayed the same. The perception of all sorts of individual
Yeah, I
cards
missed
changed
that.
to varying degrees throughout this time period. All sorts of experimental stuff saw tournament success as the format continued to develop, and some of these cards even
所以我才说鸟都死了，他们没把摩柯死啊。Like the bird died, but the scientist is still alive.
to catch on as key players in the metagame. The relatively newly released
The Turtle
Blade Knight
FTK.
and Beady Assailant, cards both released as part of different promo packs in the last quarter of 2004, were quite a bit more popular in February than they had been in December. Some people in the top 8 of
I didn't know they had another DD card that's like this one.
SJC Gen Con had been playing Blade Knight, but it was a lot more common to see this at the 3 SJCs that happened in February. Beady Assailant went from not being present in the top 8
Looks like the convention's still ongoing. But like they hosted the SJS. Oh yeah, it's still going. Oh, is it like a gaming con? I think. Oh yeah, I see. There's like TCG. Huh. Oh, that largest tabletop game convention. Wow. Wait a sec. Let me look. Co-created D&D. Established in 1968. Okay. It's in Indiana? Yeah. Early years. I'm looking at the wiki right now. Wizard of the Coast purchased TSR in 1997, which was in turn purchased by Hasbro in 1999. Yeah. Okay. Events, D&D, Magic. They didn't even say Yu-Gi-Oh here, or I mean, I'm just skimming through. Gen Con 0, date August 1967. Approximate attendance 12. We speedrun to Malice? We in 2005. You want to speedrun 20 years? That's like, okay, so if he's doing 3 years for part 1, then that's like what? It will be part 20. Till we hit 2025, no? Something like that. I'm not mathing, but you know what you understand what I mean, right? No, somebody was, oh my god, they were talking about the banish, remove this card from the game, and then there was a comment saying like Malice or. So I mean, I think still for now, like right now in 2005, they still don't have like stuff where it's like they could activate effects when it gets banished, no? That is
SJC
so
Gen
all
Con at
graveyard
being
effects.
somewhat popular among topping players at all 3 SJCs in February. This was a little bit surprising since he wasn't a light or a dark monster, and his effect was a little
Well,
bit
at
worse
least
than
it's
Beauty Warrior
Earth,
Ladies,
which is
but
like
this
what
definitely wasn't
also
the
what
weirdest meta trend of early
Inject
2005.
Little
With Mystical
Fairy
Space
Lily
Typhoon
was.
Limited, the combo of using Mirage of Nightmare together with it had become significantly harder to do. But nobody actually wanted to stop playing Mirage of Nightmare, so it became fairly standard to play a copy or two of Emergency Provisions just to destroy the Mirage and keep all the cards it allowed the player to draw. This was the only thing that generated any interest in this card from tournament players, though. A card named Metamorphosis from Pharaonic Guardian also kept popping up here and there, usually just as a one-of in the main deck. Now, this card hadn't been completely invisible since its release back in 2003 or anything, but it had never been at the forefront of the metagame. A few months after it was added to the card pool, Magical Scientist was released, a searchable way to summon a bunch of fusion monsters all at once without losing any card advantage. Metamorphosis forced whoever was using it to tribute a monster first, before they could summon the fusion monster. This was a 2-card investment, since the Metamorphosis itself had to be used, and it had to take a monster off of the field with it. Compared to Magical Scientist, who stayed on the field after using his effect, this felt obsolete, like a needlessly bigger commitment. More people started experimenting with it in 2004, after the release of Invasion of Chaos, because one important thing that
you don't
was
play-
better about it than Magical Scientist
you don't make Oz?
was the fact that it kept the fusion monster it summoned on the field permanently, at least until the monster was destroyed. This was important for a couple of reasons. Like, first of all, it was a lot easier to put a monster summoned by Metamorphosis into the graveyard than it was to put a monster summoned by Magical Scientist into the graveyard. Usually, the monsters summoned by Scientist ended up in the extra deck. It was possible to get them into the graveyard, just not particularly practical. There were also plenty of good fusion monsters that had really good effects while they were on the field. Effects that were good regardless of whose turn it was. The best examples of this were Thousand Eyes Restrict and Last Warrior from Another Planet, cards that were significantly more impactful if they managed to stay on the field for more than one turn. Now, by 2005, Magical Scientist wasn't searchable anymore because both Sengen and Witch were banned. Plus, now that players didn't have to worry about both Black Luster Soldier and Chaos Emperor Dragon together in the game at the same time, Yu-Gi-Oh! Had slowed down enough to make a lot of the monsters that this card could summon viable control.
Back to
Magical
20
Scientist was
turns.
still the preferred choice for summoning fusion monsters at this point, significantly more popular than Metamorphosis was. But this could only stay true, of course, as long as Magical Scientist was legal to play. The player base was expecting a new ban list update at any moment now, after all, and the last one had gone pretty far out of its way to get rid of any problematic cards, which most players agreed Magical Scientist
Okay,
was
so
one.
does
The
he
card
get
was definitely
banned?
a relic of a bygone era that many players wanted to see gone. And, well, if the promotional material for the next booster set was indicative of anything, it seemed like the game was more than willing to leave some aspects of its roots behind. For the first time ever, Yugi wasn't even on the cover of the next booster set. In fact, one of the Japanese posters advertising the set featured a totally
So he
different
stops at
guy who
GX,
looked
right?
like he was from an anime,
For part
but he
1?
definitely wasn't from Duel Monsters.
You gotta be hero. Yeah. Well, but the cover still didn't have Jaden. Quick asking about. I don't know who that is. I see. Right here, he is. For the Chinese translation, they said it is him. Like this is his alt account. Oh, here it, I guess. Wait, what? MS, wait, let me see. Laval, yeah, Laval. Tom Box from MST TV. What's MST TV? Is this some boomer site again? Or let's see. Oh, it's not a boomer site. Oh, it's a channel. I'm sorry. It sounds like Pogo. Yeah, he's a YouTuber. Okay, I just searched it up. It popped up. I found him. Yes, I found him. Okay. Stop at GX. Yeah, he stopped at GX. Wait, go back. Yubel pre-meta. Yubel wasn't the first. It wasn't in the first pack. Okay. House of Champ. Oh, that's his last name. I mean, I don't know why it's called like MCO40. Well, I feel like he probably explained it in some video. I just didn't know. but I didn't know it was actually his last name though. I don't know who Mike is. Trihex. I used some of his clips, but never spoke or okay. Can't understate this next bit. What? Pogo Doc TV? Mike Rosenberg? I feel like I've heard his name before, but I don't know. Wait, I need to Google. Yeah, there was. He said Mike. What? Yu-Gi-Oh. Oh, Wizard of Coast. Huh? Finals. Oh, he was at the first he was when they were interviewing about they were asking him. Yeah, world champion 2003. Yeah, he was talking. He was explaining like he didn't really do anything in the side deck. He got second place now. Famous magic card designer. Yeah, and he's also what at Wizard Course? Or no? Yeah, third place. Yeah, he was third place. For the 2003 in New York? Yeah. I see. Okay. Resources. Road of the King, yes. Pie charts. Metagame.com. Yu-Gi-Oh! Format library. Wait, is that the one where I could have found all the GOAT format and whatever stuff? Pie charts? Or not pie chart, the deck list, right? I think we were on that when we were doing Yada. Is it? Yeah, format library. Yeah, that's the one. Yeah. Meta history articles. Okay. Yeah. Pojo. Card database. Okay. Wayback Machine. Oh my god. Edo Pro. I thought we were gonna use the stuff before Edo Pro. I keep forgetting the name, but not Edo Pro. The thing that was before Edo Pro. Well, I mean they were using Edo Pro. Edo Pro to show the dudes. Who's this? Chris Perovic? I gotta Google again. Metagame.com. He plays Go? I see. Yeah. On why you should play Go. 11 years ago. Article. Site is not available. All reality games. Okay. Go. Okay. Yeah, he's a famous Go format though. Why you should play Go? 1. Go format cheat. 2. Go format has simple card pool. Bruh. Competitive Go is this an easy to get started. Go format is never ending learning experience. Shadal Fusion Go format for competitive players. Go format rewards good players and punishes bad ones. Do you know that? What do you mean? No. I don't know what. Are you talking about a card? Oh, you mean by like that's why he is called Shay in English? Kurosaki, Kurosaki Shun's logo. You know what Shun means, right? Shun just means like one of the it's like it's a type of bird. Or yeah, like it's like hawk. Or not hawk. Actually, I need to. Let me find the exact type of bird. What is it called? Falcon. Yeah, it's just falcon. Like Shun means falcon. So who else do we have here? If the music didn't clue you in, I'm making GX. What is the era for GX? 2005 to what? Hayabusa, Habas. No, okay, so you know there's like different ways to say stuff, right? So, I think you could call that like that's a different pronunciation though. Yeah, it's Hayate or Shun. Well, for names, it could be Shun. Like it could be actually like a name. Yeah. I mean Hayabusa. But Shun is usually like if it's a person's name, it would be Shun, and then you could also pronounce the same kanji. You could pronounce it June. I'll be doing a GX one. Stay tuned. So GX 3 years. Well, I mean, we could try to find out depending on when GX ends. No. Yeah, so it is 3 years. Okay. So yeah, part 2 would be 2005 to 2008 for GX. Assuming 5Ds is, I think wait, are they like all kind of like 3 years apart? I want to see, is there some OCG comments that are like, what the fuck? Somebody said that they played TCG version because they played it on PC. Yeah, using the what's that thing called, the rubber band to to do to on your deck here. Most people be like, you've translated a TR video, bruh. So exaggerated cutting. Like the storyboard, the cuttings. Bruh. Epic movie. Epic big, like, documentary. Do more of these? We Yugi Boomer. That's it. So not a lot of comments though. This is like 15K views. Maybe not a lot of people are too crazy about the TCG meta since they were not there. Well, I mean the a lot of the like current meta stuff, people are more interested, I guess. Since I guess it's more relevant. The law Yu-Gi-Oh get uploaded. I'm pretty sure. I don't even know which video you're talking about, but if it's a YouTuber thing, or it doesn't have to be YouTuber. I'm pretty sure. I feel like I know what you're talking about. Which one? I need to find what the cover looks like. Oh, the other ones. The other, like, the eras, right? The recaps. Okay, I'll have to type in and try to see it. Like, I'll type history. Let's see. Bruh, I see myself. Here. This is when I type in Yu-Gi-Oh! TCG history. So we have this. Usually when they translate, it's the same, like the same cover. So maybe no? Is it the Josh reacts? Yeah. It's the same cover. Like if they this is the one that we just watched. Oh here, this is well sometimes when they say TCG, like when we say TCG, it might be OCG. Like because we just say we say TCG. If that makes sense. So it might not be the English history. Yeah, the recap. Wait, he's watching the Law of Yu-Gi-Oh, right? The reacts? So I get it. I guess it is. It's a reaction of the Law of Yu-Gi-Oh. Right? Yeah. He'll make a big deal. I forgot. When did he start playing TCG? Well, I mean, I guess you don't have to react. It's not necessary to react if you didn't play it during the era. Like, for example, me. Well, at least I knew Chaos Yada. Well, first of all, I watched this video before, when it first came out. So I learned some Yugi Boomer knowledge from this video. As you can see, I forgot most of them. Well, not most of them, but like, yeah, 基本都是 ban 的。对，比较少。没有，就等于说只 ban 了这个，然后其他2个是他的 reaction。但是没有，他们 ban 的历史比较少，但是现在的东西他们是会 ban 的，就是我一说播放量会比较高一点。Like the current ones, like basically YouTubers explaining, talking about meta stuff. No, they have done like that I forgot the channel name, but they'll be like, is TCG dying? Or they'll like compare. I forgot the channel name, but like the cover is like 1 cards of each. Like they'll like compare different TCG cards. Like it's like I guess like a video essay or analysis, and those are translated. Well, they're translated mostly because of Yu-Gi-Oh. As I said, Yu-Gi-Oh has the most clout, whether in OCG or TCG, in video or live. Yu-Gi-Oh, like strictly speaking, the card game, Yu-Gi-Oh has clout. Well, there's more people. 我汉化组说，讲道理，我有看到他们，像他有说他有用一个什么，they use like some stuff like right here, fast whisper, like they use some stuff to help them to do the CC, like the CC timing. 讲道理应该是可以的，但是我没有时间做。I've seen actually, I also seen there was like there's a famous like deal time, was it not time control, the thing that was played in GX that didn't get translated, but somebody uploaded it on YouTube. And then there is, after the new DD support, somebody translated, like just showing like paper and then like it's like a deck profile. There was a channel that uploaded 2 videos of that DD for like from Billy. There's not enough people that are concisely translating it, but it's doable, and it'll be easier with extensional like GitHub support. So to make it faster, but then you would need to know the knowledge of like terminology or like meme stuff, because when people talk about it, like it's like you would need to know that. Yeah. 击翻不行的。就是你打轴的话，这样快一点，肯定是不能击翻的。No, there's even no. I've seen on Bilibili, there's even like they do the translation, right? They do the translation and they even have AI to voice over it. 就是他们是击翻，不止击翻，然后再加上它AI 配音。So it's like they have the Chinese CC plus as like a Chinese Chinese AI talking about the video. I'm just saying it's doable. No, I don't know how many people are interested. I mean, if people are interested, they'll watch it. If they're not interested, they're not gonna watch it. But I'm not gonna do it. I can't do it. 这是 AI 配音，这不是 AI 配音。 我在说我 B 站上有看到过，这个当然不是配音啊，这个是原音啊，这个又不是中文，哪里来的配音？这个系列他们说 UP 主出了点事，然后要重新做，还没有做出来 ，Part 2没有做出来。这个视频已经是3年前的了。I think the original video was 3 years ago. No, yeah, 3 years ago. 他还在做。I'm assuming it's still work in progress on Part 2 for GX. But yeah. 考古了，还好吧。It's not that bad to dig these stuff because well, because like it's not like you can still talk to people that were there, right? Okay, that's it for today. I know Simo also have done like tiny segments of like 20 minutes of like OCG history, which I have never actually watched. But apparently, I guess there's also OCG. I mean, to be honest, I'm pretty sure on Bilibili there's OCG history, like in detail. Yeah. Right. So, oh here, this, yeah, 2017 to 2020, 10 minutes speed run. Right here, 2010 to 2019. Bruh, this is pre 2000 actual OCG, 1999 to 2000. Bruh, they're not like 2 hours though. 没有翻译后面的可惜了，不是他还没有做出来，他 Part 2还没有做出来，英文的都没有做出来。Yeah. Well, I mean, these are games though, or GBA. It says GBA, so I think they also talk about games. But yeah. 专门做 OCG 回忆录的，我知道肯定是有的。回忆录。怎么没搜出来？它是叫回忆录吗？星魂，我得搜它名字是吧？星魂。没有啊。Bruh. 哦。Right here. Yeah. Oh, this is like one card for each year, 1999 to 2025. So fast. Yeah, it's not like 2 hours though. That's like 10 to 20 minutes. Oh, right here. Yeah, look, tier was only 60%. Here. I've seen these, like they'll talk about, look, there's like banlist memorial, banlist memorial 7. This almost killed Yu-Gi-Oh. What fan club? Why are these ban cards banned? So yeah, there's a lot. Like that's what I mean by like I think there's not enough people that care about TCG history. But they do like watch, well, I mean, maybe not all players care about TCG stuff, even recent, but like there's more, I know for sure there's more people care about recent TCG. Because like for history they'll just like they'll look at the OCG, I guess. Well, maybe like sometimes they might have to talk about TCG, but it wouldn't be the focus. Okay. Do you guys, for Twitch people, do you guys want to watch Yu-Gi-Oh or no? Tomorrow, I'm gonna try to figure out tabletop simulator, because I don't actually know how to do stuff, but we might just read cards.